Welcome to Just a Minute. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme four exciting, talented performers who are going to speak for just a minute on the subject that I give them and try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josie Lawrence, and seated on my left, Zoe Lyons and Graham Norton. Will you please welcome all four of them? As usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling. She'll help me with the score. She'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we'll begin the show this week with Graham Norton. Who better? Graham, don't you know who I am? That is the subject.
Nicholas Parsons. Oh, sorry, I thought...
I'm sure you've used the phrase, but tell us something about that. But maybe you've never used the phrase. You don't need to. You're far too...
I'm saving it. I've got 60 seconds to fill.
Right. 60 seconds. Fill it if you can. Don't you know who I am? Starting now.
I don't think it's ever a good idea to ask, don't you know who I am? It's up there with, how old do you think I am? It will not end well. A friend of mine in her early 40s was dancing in a club once, and a man asked her age. She uttered that question I just mentioned, and he said 50, and she came and had a full facelift afterwards. Now, who do you think... No, don't you know who I am? Is that what it is?
Yes.
No.
So you've
Please,
challenged.
somebody tell me. I just don't know.
He's forgotten who he is. That was a hesitation.
I
there.
think we call it
was
a
a slight...
It was.
So, Zoe, you've got a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject. There are 32 seconds available. Don't you know who I am? Starting now.
I have yet to use the phrase, don't you know who I am, because I don't even know who I am on occasion. I was once mistaken for somebody else in an Italian restaurant in Cumbria many years ago. They thought I was indeed a different comedian. I didn't...
Josie, you challenge then.
Hesitation.
We interpret that as hesitation. So, Josie, you have a point for the correct challenge, and you've got 14 seconds if you want it. Don't you know who I am? Starting now.
I agree with Graham. I can't stand these type of celebs that go, don't you know who I am, to cab drivers or waiters in restaurants. It's terrible. Although I was very, very happy.
Zoe, you did challenge before the whistle went.
It was a very, very...
It was very. It's the sort of thing, a figure of speech we all use, but
I know.
Not in just a minute. So, Zoe, a correct challenge, a point to you, and you have half a second on Don't You Know Who I Am, starting now.
I think I know.
And this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point, and you won't be surprised to know that it was Zoe Lyons who got the extra point. In fact, she's in a very strong lead at the end of the round. And Zoe, and we're also with you to begin the next round. Motorway service stations. Ooh. That's a good subject. Tell us something about it, Zoe, in this game, starting now.
I spend an awful lot of time in motorway service stations because I do quite a bit of driving. I quite enjoy a motorway.
Josie challenged.
Repetition of quite.
Yes,
so
quite a
early
bit.
on. So early on. I let myself down there. I did.
So, Josie, a correct challenge, a point to you, and the subject, 51 seconds available, motorway service stations starting now.
I find motorway service stations at night very scary places. I'm sure somebody must have made a horror film about them. All the shops are closed, but there is the toilet sign, blinking neon. I go in, there's no one there, just the drip, drip, drip. What's happening? The repetition god has taken over my brain.
a very natural thing to do.
Isn't it? But it's true, isn't it? They're scary.
Paul, you challenge first.
Yes, too many drips.
Too many drips. And you get a point, of course. You take over the subject. 32 seconds available. Motorway service stations starting now.
When Edward Munch was approached by a motorway service station to reproduce his painting of the Scream, he picked Nicholas Parsons as his model. As the celebrated broadcaster stood in front of the painter, the celebrated artist said, "You'll have to lose the blazer." What happened there? What happened there?
Graham challenge.
I believe there was two celebrations.
There were two celebrations.
Two celebrations. So, Graham, you had a great challenge. You have a point for that. 17 seconds starting now.
I believe motorway service stations are a calorie-free zone. Things...
Zoe challenge.
I don't think Graham's ever been in a motorway service station. They are temples of absolute sugary treaty towns.
My point is, I think you can eat them in there.
Calorie-free? Oh, I see what you mean.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Sorry, then I
Yes.
totally misunderstood. I thought you meant there were no calories in a motorway service station.
I thought that too.
Oh,
But,
so
I feel it's like a calorie amnesty when you're
I
in there.
see.
Yes.
Anything goes.
Yeah, anything goes.
I'm
Things you would
entirely
never
with you.
eat, shovel down you in a motorway service station.
A tray of donuts.
Absolutely. Free.
Yeah.
Have it.
Yeah.
Excuse me, have you two finished?
Yep, sorry.
Graham, you have the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
And you have 12 seconds still available. Motorway service stations starting now.
Is there no ginsters with table service? Ooh, to sit down and have one of their products on a nice ceramic plate. Wouldn't that be delicious? And perhaps not the temperature of a corpse.
So Graham Norton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point and is equal with Zoe Lyons in the lead. And we're with Josie Lawrence to begin. And the subject is palm reading. 60 seconds starting now.
I think of myself as quite a mystical, spiritual person, but there's something about palm reading I don't quite get, mainly because Madame Doris, when I was in my 20s, gave me a palm reading and got quite a lot of things wrong. For example, she told me I'd have 2 children, but I haven't unless they popped out when I wasn't looking and are now fending for themselves. She also made the prediction that I would meet the man of my dreams and marry him. But look, Nicholas Parsons is already married. So that didn't happen either. But a lot of people really believe in palm readings. It goes back to the Hindu times and Chinese, and they all believed that you could see your fate simply in the palm of your hand. Now, the lifeline goes from the top of the thumb around this little fleshy...
Josie, that doesn't often happen. Someone begins with a subject and keeps going for 60 seconds, so you get a point for speaking the whistle went, a bonus point for not being interrupted, and you've taken the lead one ahead of all the others. And Paul, we're with you to begin. Subject which I think you probably know something about, Buster Keaton. Tell us something about that great comedian in this game, starting now.
I've never heard of him. Buster Keaton was born in 1895, died in 1966, and in between he was a vaudeville performer before getting into movies in the 1920s. His directorial vision is often described by critics as being unique, but he was one of many great performers of that time. Buster Keaton believed in the purity of the joke, so rather than try and, for example, let me explain, there was one particular routine where a stage caveman had to throw a rock at another person of a similar time in history. He hit the spherical boulder back at the previous gentleman I mentioned, but instead of doing it in 3 shots, 1 throw in, 2nd hit in, 3rd one man collected it again, it was all done in 1 continuous take. So you saw it took 54 goes before it was achieved, because the shape of the thing that he was being thrown at and what was hitting it were both irregular, so the chances of it going this way or another were extremely high. He was undoubtedly a man who believed in doing his own stunts.
Well, I don't know whether that's ever happened before. 2 successive just a minutes without being interrupted either. Paul, no hesitation, repetition or deviation, and you went to the whistle.
They were very generous, I think.
That's very
You do know
interesting.
you're Buster Keaton.
Well, 1 point for speaking the whistle went, and a bonus point for not being interrupted. And so we're back with you, Graham, and the subject is a tall story. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
A tall story is the sort of tale that is difficult to believe. I mean, stretches your credulity. That is to say, breaks it in two, destroys all truth that might contain within that saga or epic that is being relayed to you, be it in written form or by the use of words produced by a voice box that is deep in a throat of a human being. Parrots can speak, but I don't think you would ever refer to something that came out of their beak as a tall story. That would be stupid. Shut up, Graham. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a man was telling...
You completely changed your personality, Graham. And you've exhausted yourself, haven't you?
I have exhausted myself.
Absolutely.
I keep forgetting I'm older than I think.
But the audience loved it.
Oh, it was lovely.
They loved watching you do it. But Zoe, you got in first with a challenge. What was it?
It was a bit of a hesitation.
A bit of a
There was just
hesitation,
a little
yeah.
bit of a breakdown, really, I think.
Anyway, you got in, Zoe, with 8 seconds to go on a tall story starting now.
When I was a child, I used to get out of trouble by telling my parents a tall story around the actual truth. It would sometimes involve...
So Zoe Lyons was speaking when the whistle went, and she hasn't played the game as much as the others, but she's now taken the lead. One. All right. So keep it up, Zoe. And actually, Zoe, it's your turn to begin. I don't know what your knowledge of history is, but here's a real historical subject. Anne Boleyn. Can you tell us something about her in this game, starting now?
Anne Boleyn was, of course, the second wife of Henry VIII, who had a number of spouses during the course of his life. She was a very beautiful woman who enjoyed dressing up around her fake Tudor mansion. She particularly liked wearing frocks and hats, which was quite tragic, given how she ended up with nothing to plop her bonnet on.
No, we loved it, Zoe. But Graham, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was
Hesitation.
So 36 seconds are still available, Graham. You have another point. You have Anne Boleyn as a subject, starting now.
Who hasn't enjoyed a portrait of Anne Boleyn?
Paul challenged.
I haven't.
I was going to get to that.
Oh.
I think the interruption was worthy of a bonus point, don't you? No?
Wow, they're harsh.
This is what happens when you let people vote on important issues.
That last remark does deserve a bonus point. But Graham was interrupted, and so he gets a point for that. He keeps Anne Boleyn, and doesn't keep her, but he keeps the subject. 32 seconds available, Graham, starting now.
Anne Boleyn spelt her name with an E. She was a real character, full of personality. To meet her was to love her, I'm told. I remember reading a huge book all about her. Let me get on to the facts, ladies and gentlemen, because I know that's what you're interested in. There's a lot of waffle around these subjects, but you want to hear the detail...
Paul is challenged.
We want to hear the detail. I think he's deviating a little bit from the subject of Anne Boleyn by telling us how much he knows, but he's not telling us anything.
Oh, that's an interesting challenge.
It's a delaying tactic. Life is unfair.
Paul, I must have repeated something.
You didn't.
No, you
I?
didn't repeat
No.
anything. I listened very attentively always. And
I think they should fight it out naked.
give Josie
all
a
right.
bonus point. And, Paul, an incorrect challenge.
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to give Graham the benefit of the doubt because he was still talking about Anne Boleyn, even though historically he wasn't giving us many facts.
No.
So
But what he
Graham,
was giving us was pure gold.
Thank you. There are 9 seconds still available.
9 seconds, this will be a stretch.
You're telling me. No, I'm ready.
Oh, it's getting bitter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. 9 seconds, Graham. Anne Boleyn starting now.
Anne Boleyn rhymes with thin, and that reminds me, she had a super figure. I know she did a lot of help from those bony things she would wear under her beautiful dresses, but... Easy. Anne Boleyn's sort of my Buster Keaton. Exactly. I mean, there's not a lot I don't know.
At the end of that round, Graham is speaking to us. When gained an extra point, he's taken the lead, 2 ahead of all the others. And Josie Lawrence, it's your turn to begin now. The subject is dust sheet. Tell us something.
Dust sheet?
Yes. It's in the singular here.
Oh, I'm going to really mess this one up, I know.
It sounds like
Listen, I'm going to put it into the plural because it's easier.
Okay.
Dust sheets.
Dust sheet.
Dust sheets.
Dust sheets.
Thank
It's
you.
not much easier, is it?
No.
I don't know.
Sounds like the title of a really bad action movie. Dust sheet.
There's a lot to talk about dust sheets. I mean, they're being used all the time over everything, aren't they?
Yeah.
Nicholas, that's
wakes
about
up-
all I know about it, and you just used it up.
Nicholas wakes up underneath one,
I
doesn't
suppose.
he? Every morning.
Dust sheets, Josie. 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
I think you can always tell the calibre of your builder by how wonderful his dust sheets are. I mean, I don't want somebody to bring in an old flannelette blanket and bung it on the floor. Trevor, go to the van and get the brand new cotton dust sheets and a pot.
Paul challenge.
How long have you lived in Johannesburg?
It's funny you should mention that. It shows how well I did the accent, because Bob does actually come from Johannesburg.
I withdraw my challenge.
Yes, see?
I'm going to say that Josie was interrupted, so
Yeah,
she
she
gets the
was.
point.
Absolutely.
And 42 seconds available still, Josie, on
Yeah.
dust sheets, starting now.
Dust sheets are really necessary when you're having work done, like a wall being banged down.
Paul challenge.
A wall being banged down. That wall's getting too up itself. Look at him.
Banged
Supporting the house, I'll show you.
We say banged down in the Midlands. Bang that wall down, we say.
What does it mean?
Bang it down, knock it down, bang it down.
Knock it
Demolish
down.
it.
Demolish it. Is the
Bang
technical
Demolish it,
down.
yes. But an incorrect challenge, Josie, so you've still got dust sheets if you want to keep them. And 35 seconds available, starting now.
Dust sheets are very useful for covering your furniture, like chairs, tables, the grand piano, the bird cage. Take the little feathery thing out first, else he'll die because you forgot him. My friend who was house sitting once used my dust sheets, which are really duvet covers, to put on the bed, thinking that the paint and the muddy footprints were the pattern. She got the wrong...
Oh.
I
Paul,
didn't
you
breathe
challenged.
for the entire time I was speaking.
Paul, you challenged.
Well, there was a repetition of ha at the
Yes,
end.
was.
There were.
Ha ha.
Ha ha.
And you've got him with 3 seconds to go.
I know. I'm as
that is the
disappointed as you are.
game.
I
He was
share
listening
this
well. He challenged first. He's entitled to it. A point, Paul. 3 seconds. Dust sheets starting now.
Dr. Crippen moves slowly towards me.
So Paul Merton gives the whistle when gained an extra point. He and Zoe Lyons are equal in second place, but only 1 point behind our joint leaders, Graham Norton and Josie Lawrence. Paul, we're with you to begin.
Yes.
The 8th wonder of the world. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
When the film King Kong was released in 1933, it was publicly described as the 8th wonder of the world. What a fantastic movie it is. The giant ape undressing Fay Ray. I was only about 14 when I first saw that film. Oh, she's a cracking beauty, I must say. Cute little number. As the giant monkey pulls the dress away and...
Zoe challenged.
I think there were 2 giants
There were
in
2
there.
giants.
There was a
Was there?
giant ape and a
Zoe,
giant
yes.
monkey.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, I changed
So-
monkey but not giant.
Yes. So another point to you, and well listened, Zoe. The 8th wonder of the world. 41 seconds starting now.
Milton Keynes is often overlooked as a town, but I often think of it as the 8th wonder of the world when I am negotiating my way around its maze of roundabouts and back streets.
Paul challenged.
No, it's a bit harsh, really. I once, when I worked for the Department of Employment, I was partly responsible for sending people to new towns and Milton Keynes. So it's based on a grid system.
Wow. Wow, this is a technical challenge.
I mean, there are people who live in Milton Keynes who'll be very annoyed to hear it described as a maze, but no, I think that's a very unfair
I'm going to
challenge.
say, Paul, not a correct challenge. So, Zoe, another point to you. The eighth wonder of the world, 27 seconds starting now.
A more engaging.
Graham, you challenge first.
There was a hesitation.
Yeah, there's a hesitation. 25 seconds are still available, Graham. The eighth wonder of the world starting now.
Okay, before we focus on the eighth wonder of the world, let's build up it slowly by going through the original 7 wonders of the world.
Oh, Paul, you challenged.
Yes, it's the previous 7 isn't the 8th wonder of the world.
I mean, technically, you are right.
He
But
did
let me
say-
talk to you about the previous 7.
No, he said let's build up to the eighth wonder of the world.
Yes, in a minute you
But
really
he hadn't
can't.
got it. Yes, but he hadn't got it going, had he? He
It's
just
not just
made
a
the
month,
statement.
is it?
I think they
Just
should,
the weekend.
I think they should fight naked.
Josie, I'm getting worried about you.
He's doing it alone, ladies. Oh my God, he really is. We saw a lot of Paul Merton just now. A lot of Paul Merton.
Can I point out,
mind about
amongst the
Milton
laugh, there was
Keynes.
one person who gave me a round of applause.
I think
Just
that
for
can be
mobility.
described as the 8th wonder of the world, actually, haven't you seen that?
Exactly.
But Graham didn't take up the challenge. Right, there are 17 seconds available starting now.
Instead of focusing on the eighth wonder of the world, let's dwell on the...
Oh, Paul challenged.
Didn't we have that exact same sentence? I mean, I'm just waiting for Anne Boleyn to turn up.
I was about to get to Buster Keaton.
So you had the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, Paul, and you have a point, of course. And there are 13 seconds still available. The eighth wonder of the world starting now.
The Empire State Building featured very heavily in that cinematic entertainment that I mentioned earlier. People at the time had no idea how this monstrous figure had been created, let alone animated by such experts as...
So, Paul Merton speaking as the whistle way and gained the extra point. If you're interested in the score, Zoe Lyons and Josie Lyons are equal in third place, 1 point behind Paul Merton, who's 1 point behind Graham Norton. And Graham, we're back with you to begin. Another historical subject.
Great.
The Colosseum.
Of course it's the Colosseum. I feel like I'm cheating, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I just feel like I'm cheating.
But talk about some other buildings and build up to the Colosseum.
I probably will.
The Colosseum, Graham, 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
I've been to Rome, so there really isn't anything I don't know about the Colosseum. This should really be a Q&A. That will be fairer.
Josie, challenge, why?
Repetition of really.
Yes, yes.
Curses.
You're going to tap all that knowledge,
So, Josie, a correct
Continue.
challenge. You've now got the Colosseum, and you have 52 seconds if you want it, starting now.
The Colosseum is in Rome. I've never been, but I think that's where the gladiators were. And they used to fight with their slaves and lions and fires and pickaxes and hammers, banging on all.
Wait a minute, yes, Paul.
There was a lot of ands.
A lot of bands,
And,
yes.
you know.
And they didn't have pickaxes there.
They might have done. You weren't around then.
According
Well,
to
to be
Paul
honest,
Merton, I
Nicholas was normally the warm-up act for the Lions. Here's one.
Right. Paul, correct
Yes.
challenge to Paul. A point to him. The Colosseum, 40 seconds available, starting now.
Nicholas was nervous. The Lions had eaten the previous comedian, and he knew his blazer was going to be no antidote to their giant jaws. The Colosseum, built in Rome and other places as well, were inspired by the great construction that we see now even today, centuries later. The Colosseum. Who can speak those words without thinking of Kirk Douglas as Spartacus, stripped to the waist, ready to have a go at any chicken that came his path? He wasn't going to fight the tigers. No! He was more interested in domestic fowl. Show him a red rooster and he'll be somebody.
Joey, you challenge first.
He fell foul of his own foul.
Yes, he did. So another point to you, Zoe. And there are 8 seconds still available. The Colosseum starting now.
Emperors would sit in their big thrones looking down on the gladiators below and would decide upon their fates by the simple upward or down ways.
Right. So we're moving into the final round. And it's incredibly close, if you're interested in the score. And Zoe, it's your turn to begin. A roller coaster ride. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
This is only my second appearance on Just a Minute, and I have to admit it is a little bit of a roller coaster ride for me. There are the highs and then the lows of stumbling over your own words, but hoping that you'll find some form of inspiration lurking somewhere in the back of your cognitive little cogs. The choices of phrases that make themselves available to you in the forefront of your mouth are such an exciting thrill. It's almost like being on a roller coaster. I have to admit that the roller coaster is not my theme park ride of choice, as I am both scared of heights and speed. I prefer a teacup ride where I can sit in a little pot and go around and back again. Merry-go-rounds, deadly, gently. Genuinely smooth.
Oh, right, Paul, you challenged.
Yes, I'm afraid it was repetition.
Yeah, rather rare. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do is, actually, when you played the game once before, I'm going to give you a bonus point for going for...
That was oddly thrilling.
51 seconds you went for there. So, Paul, you got him with 9 seconds to go on a roller coaster ride, starting now.
The first time I went to Chesterton Zoo when I was 7 years old, I was enticed onto the roller coaster ride. As the machine slowly cranked into view...
So, let me give you the final score. In fourth place, and a brilliant, brilliant fourth place, was Josie Lawrence. And she was
She came last. I mean, she came last.
Graham Norton. Graham Norton was 1 point behind Zoe Lyons, and she was 1 point behind Paul Merton, who was this week's winner. A round of applause for all four of them. I think you could say that it was an honourable draw. So it only remains me to say thank you to these four fine players of the game: Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence, Zoe Lyons, and Graham Norton. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such delicacy when the 60 seconds elapsed. We're indebted to our producer, Matt Strong, and we're deeply indebted to the inventor of this amazing game, Ian Messiter. And so from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and this audience, goodbye, thank you, and tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. And also to welcome to the programme four exciting, dynamic performers who are going to talk for just a minute if they can on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Gyles Brandreth and Tom Allen. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Beverly Tagg, who's going to help me with the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show very apt. Paul Merton, my New Year's resolution. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
My New Year's resolution was to find my biological father. The only information I have about him is his name is Nicholas Parsons. I was left on the steps of Charing Cross Hospital wrapped in a cravat. And according to my mother, my first words were, well, it's with a huge amount of pride that I welcome listeners to Just a Minute, not only just in this country, but all over the world. When I was 21, I asked her what my dada was really like.
Sheila, challenge.
Dada.
Oh.
Dada.
One word.
I think it's usually written as one word.
Yeah, well, yes,
Is
one
it?
word, yeah, like papa. Yeah.
Mama, papa, dada.
Right.
So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt if I can later on, Sheila.
No,
but
no,
at the moment,
no.
I have to give it to Paul and say an
Thank you,
incorrect
Father.
challenge, Paul. So you have a point for that. You keep the subject. There are 33 seconds available, starting now.
What's he like? I said to her. Effeminate, gruff.
Giles, you challenge first.
Hesitation, I'm not
Yes,
surprised.
it was. A full stop. Right, Giles, you've gone in there with 30 seconds to go, and the subject is my New Year's resolution starting now.
My New Year's resolution was very simple. No bread, rice, pasta or potatoes, nil by hand, and only eat 3 times a way. I want to make my body like a temple, something that women will go wild for and men will aspire to. And I think you'll feel that I am succeeding. Here we are in February and already...
Oh, Paul, challenge.
I disagree. I can see that you see your body as a temple, and I also see you have adequate car parking facilities, but I'm not sure. I think it's deviation to suggest that all men envy you and all women wish to possess
all
you.
men would aspire to.
Oh, aspire?
Yeah,
No, he did
exactly.
say aspire.
Oh,
not
no, I
envy.
agree with that. I do that, yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, Giles, we'll give that as an incorrect challenge. A point to you, and there are 11 seconds still available. My New Year's resolution starting now.
My other New Year's resolution is to lose just a minute with a better grace than perhaps I have in the past, because my wife has sent me to counselling about anger.
The mention of counselling.
So you challenge first.
A bit of hesitation on...
There was a bit of hesitation.
Yes, on
And you got
counselling.
in there with 3 seconds to go.
Oh, how exciting.
You've got a point. You have my New Year's resolution starting now.
My New Year's resolution is to stop hating everybody around me.
So at the end of that round, its situation is, well, Giles and Tom have both got 2 points. Paul's got 1. Sheila's yet to score, but it's Sheila. You can begin the next round. Washing the car. Something a lot of us know about. Talk to us on the subject, Sheila, if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
Washing the car makes me think of my father. We were the first people in our street to get one. It was a Mayflower and rather beautiful, and every Sunday, Dad got out a bucket and some leathers, sponges, brushes.
Giles challenge.
I felt as the list went on, the hesitation grew.
It did, but not enough for me to give it against her.
And a benefit of the doubt is owed.
A benefit of the doubt is owed to her, and she has it.
Can I say, Giles, how graciously you accepted that decision?
Is that your New Year's resolution?
Well, he did say that the people aspire to be like him, and nobody could care less about that from our... 43 seconds, Sheila, you've got your first point. Washing the car, starting now.
Dad used to swerve all over the road.
Giles challenge.
Repetition of dad.
You talked
I think I
about
said
your...
my father.
The first time you
My
said father, then you
father,
said
yes.
dad, now you said dad again.
Did I?
I think you said... Oh. Shall I ask the audience?
But how gracious he makes the remark.
That was a definite repetition of dad.
I think so.
I fear so.
All right.
I fear so.
Giles, you've got there 41 seconds. You tell us something about washing the car, starting now.
Let me take you back to my childhood when I was in the bath washing my first car. Nanny said, "It's a dinky," and how right she was.
Sheila, you've challenged.
I don't think we want to hear this. We know he had a strange childhood. It's come up before, this kind of
you're-
aristocratic background. But
You're
no.
challenging on the grounds of deviation because it was
Yes.
it was a bit devious if you think about it. So, Sheila, a challenge for which you earn a point. 34 seconds available. Washing the car, starting now.
He was terrified of going through puddles lest it should splash his mud guards, so he was over the curb and over the...
Giles got you again, yes.
Over.
Over. And there are 26 seconds still available. Giles, washing the car, starting now.
Later in life, I acquired a bronze Elvis, a beautiful motor car that had 2 careful owners, one of whom turned out to be Nicholas Parsons, and therefore it was a beautifully buffed vehicle. It hardly needed washing at all. Arthur Haynes had once ridden in the back seat, and there was an amusing chauffeur who always met it and did wonderful work on the wheels. There was lovely leather inside this amazing combustion engine, and the chauffeur...
So Giles was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. Tom, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is the telephone box. Will you tell us something about telephone box in this game starting now?
Telephone boxes are a symbol of Britishness around the world. They are also the perfect display case for cool girls to put up their cards. When I was a child, I was always mesmerized by the beautifully dressed women who displayed their telephone number along with a fee and a desperation to show me a good time. Though it was wasted on me because mainly I thought, how could I possibly have a good time worrying...
Gyles, you challenge it.
A repetition of good time.
Good time. Having too much of a good time.
Too much of a good time.
So, Gyles, the correct challenge. 34 seconds are still available. Tell us something about telephone box starting now.
I happen to know a little bit about this because thanks to working for The One Show, I made a short film about the history of the telephone box, designed by Sir Gyles Gilbert Scott and first used on the streets of London in 1926. Nicholas and I once gathered outside a telephone box in Edinburgh to see a show presented by a company called Lesbians Ignite. They were putting on a performance of Macbeth. It was pretty racy stuff, and we enjoyed it hugely. The three witches threw in toads and newts all inside this telephone box. We squeezed in.
So Gyles was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he has increased his lead at the end of that round. He's a few points ahead of Tom Allen and Sheila Hancock in that order, and then Paul Merton. So Gyles, we're with you to begin, and the subject is Waterloo. Tell us something about Waterloo in just a minute, starting now.
Waterloo, among other things, is a railway station, and the justification, in my mind, for renaming Ebbsfleet as Agincourt and for calling Charing Cross El Alamein. Waterloo is also a song by ABBA and a movie starring Rod Steiger, as well as a Victorian euphemism for the water closet. Water closet, yes.
Oh, Gyles. Oh, how embarrassing.
Yeah.
A repetition of water closet.
Yes.
Yes. And that's your
Sometimes
correct
you need
challenge,
to go
Tom.
twice.
And you get
Yes.
a point for that.
Oh,
and you have
absolutely.
36 seconds if you want them on Waterloo. Tom, starting now.
Waterloo is my favourite of the London stations. It has a romantic connotation because I have often met lovers underneath the clock who have realised how tardy I am in every sense. Waterloo also bothers me because it does not have enough attendants on the gates, and I find it very confusing as to whether I need an Oyster card to travel to certain places in the southwest of London, or if...
Gyles, you challenged.
Repetition of London.
Oh, yes.
One of my favourite London stations,
Yes,
travelling around
yes.
London.
Oh, Gyles, I didn't know it was going to be that sort of game.
Very gracious, though, very gracious.
Very gracious about it.
Tom, it is that sort of game, and you went for many seconds, and you've not played it very often, did very well, but unfortunately, you did trip up. Gyles has got in with the correct challenge. There are still 11 seconds available, Gyles. Waterloo, starting now.
In an earlier life, I happened to be at the Battle of Waterloo because I was once the Emperor Napoleon. It was not my greatest day, but I do remember it vividly because there was a horse.
Right. So Gyles was then speaking, the whistle went, and has increased his lead at the end of the round. Paul, we're back with you to begin. Now, I hope I can pronounce this correctly, because the subject is feng shui. Is that right?
Yes, probably.
Well, probably.
Say it again. Who?
Well,
What is
feng
it?
shui or feng shui. And anyway, Paul, talk on the subject. 60 seconds, starting now.
It became a very popular concept in Western life round about 25 years ago. I remember there was a couple in Leeds that kept wanting to buy a new house, and they would invite this feng shui expert to come along, and they would say, oh, no, you can't buy this property. This wouldn't be any good for you. The yellow door isn't appropriate with those purple windows. And they would pay this person £1,000 and then go and see something else on the housing market. And it didn't ever occur to them that the feng shui expert was consistently telling them to see somewhere else so they would get another £1,000. But that's not to say that feng shui is understood.
Gyles challenge.
Repetition of £1,000.
Oh, yes, another £1,000.
Did I?
Yes, at the beginning.
Did I?
Yes.
I don't really listen to what I'm saying. But I'm sure that's right.
But fortunately, the others do. So,
Yes,
Gyles, you've got in on feng shui. 30 seconds to go, starting now.
I understand that President Trump is an enthusiast for feng shui. This remarkable individual, who, as we know, is a curious cross between Donald Duck and Woody Woodpecker, has rearranged all the furniture in the White House and let in a breath of fresh air by flinging open the windows so that the feng shui spirits can come in and build that wall as well as draining that swamp. So feng shui is not to be confused with feng sushi, which is Japanese.
Ah, wait a minute.
No.
You let it go, dear. Right, so we'll assume then that you were speaking as the whistle went, because there was only half a second left.
Oh.
So Paul got in with half a second to go. He's cancelled his challenge. You got a point for speaking when the whistle should have gone. And at the end of the round, you got another point and you increased your lead. And Sheila, we're with you now to take the next round. Oh, a lovely one. Beatrix Potter. Tell us something about Beatrix Potter in just a minute, starting now.
I love Beatrix Potter. She's an amazing woman. She not only wrote those lovely Flopsy Bunny and Peter Rabbit things, but she was an amazing... Oh, no.
Oh. So, Tom, you challenged first.
I'm sorry, Sheila, I did challenge
Yes.
with repetition of amazing.
She was too amazing.
I
Right.
should have
So,
changed.
Tom, you've got him with 49 seconds to go. Beatrix Potter starting now.
I can't stand Beatrix Potter. She was from the Lake District, which, as we know, is the most dreary place.
Sheila challenge.
She actually wasn't from the Lake District. She ended up in the Lake District, but I think she was born in the Boltons.
Yes, that's right.
In London. Yeah, there's a plaque.
No, Paul didn't know that. Look at him nodding.
Fulham Road.
There's one of those blue
There's a blue
plaques.
plaque on the wall there, just before Fulham Road.
Anyway, it was a correct challenge, I'm afraid, Tom.
Sheila, right.
So Sheila has another point, and she has 43 seconds to tell us more about Beatrix Potter starting now.
She came from a very respectable background and they wanted her to marry well. But she, in fact, married rather late. Oh, God.
Giles.
Married well and married.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, two different
Marry
words.
well and married, yes.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Paul.
Wrong thing. Was that you, Giles?
Yes, it was Giles.
I don't think...
I was so completely wrong. I would like to apologise. Because, you know, can I say, the
You don't
flow,
wanna-
the mellifluous, it's not often we hear the voice of a great actress in her prime. And
With
just
a
to hear
terrible
her
cold.
is just wonderful.
So why did you
Struggling to
interrupt
make
her?
voice.
in order to pay this New Year compliment.
No, anyway, your interruption gives her a point because it was incorrect, and she has 36 seconds still available for Beatrix Potter
It
starting.
can't be 36 seconds still. I've
so-
been lettering on for hours. Are you sure you're doing it right?
Yes. Anyway, so Sheila, there's still 36 seconds. Beatrix Potter starting now.
She became a breeder of lovely special sheep in Hilltop Farm. And eventually she bought lots of other properties because she wanted to keep them countryside and not let them be urbanized. And she very generously, when she died, gave everything to the National Trust. There was a dispute just recently because somebody tried to sell one of the cottages separate from the land, and people objected, saying that Beatrix Potter wouldn't have liked that. She wanted everything to be for the animals and the little Flopsy bunnies.
So Sheila Hancock was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point. She's moved forward. She's now in second place, just ahead of Tom Allen and just behind Gyles Brandreth. And Tom, it's your turn to begin.
All right.
So, Tom, you have the subject of the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh,
Tell us
thank
some-
you, Nicholas.
Oh, you're grateful, are you?
Yes, I've learnt everything I know from Gyles.
Right. Well, 60 seconds is enough, starting now.
The Bermuda Triangle makes me think, not for the first time this week, about Barry Manilow and his song Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda Triangle, it makes things disappear. Bermuda Triangle, don't go too near. And repeat. The Bermuda... Oh!
Paul, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah, definite
It was
hesitation.
more of a breathing, surely.
It was a breathing that extended into a short holiday.
In the Bermuda Triangle.
So, Paul, 42 seconds are still available. You have a correct challenge, a point. The Bermuda Triangle starting now.
The Bermuda Triangle was a concept dreamt up by a man called Charles Baritz in the mid-1970s, who wrote this book supposedly about aircraft that disappeared inside this mysterious Bermuda Triangle. But actually, most of the disappearing aircraft could easily be explained.
Oh, Sheila challenge.
Repetition of aircraft?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So, Sheila, another point to you. Correct challenge. 29 seconds available. The Bermuda Triangle starting now.
It's a lovely biscuit, triangular shape with chocolate on the outside and coconut cream. My family call it the Bermuda Triangle because it disappears so quickly. It is so tasty, and they eat it up, and therefore that is how it got its name. It comes from this place where ships disappear, apparently, but I think it's people just skiving off and having affairs and pretending that they've got lost, and they turn up.
So Sheila Hancock was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and she's moved forward, but not very far. She's just still ahead of Tom and behind Gyles in that sequence. And Gyles, we're back with you to begin. It's very apt from the Bermuda Triangle, sailing close to the wind. That's the subject. 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
If you feel inclined to ask somebody whether they are male or female, the rule is don't, especially not on a first date. Sailing close to the wind is something I have done all my life. Flirting with Princess Anne is sailing close to the wind. Winking at Jeremy Corbyn in a lascivious way is sailing very close to the wind. It's an expression, a euphemism for doing things that are risky. Of course, you can do it at sea. I remember years ago when I was much younger going on a sailing trip with Mr. Edward Heath. He was then leader of the opposition. And he liked to go on a ship called Morning Cloud. We sailed so close to the wind. And I said to him, sir...
Paul's challenge.
Deviation, wasn't it a boat, Morning Cloud, rather than a ship?
Well, he was a man of ambition, and he regarded it very much as a ship. It was contentious, and in fact, calling it a ship was sailing quite close to the wind.
Paul, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that one.
I think so too.
And you've got the subject of sailing close to the wind, and 12 seconds available, starting now.
As I stood aboard the prow of the ship, looking towards the horizon, I could feel the waves, the salty, briny air sweeping up against my shoulders. I realised if this ship was going to get home, it was down to me. The Titanic was sailing.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. Oh, he's moved forward. He's still in third place with Tom, and just ahead of Sheila and just behind Gyles. And Paul, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject now, spectacles. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Spectacles are the things that you never forget seeing. There was, in 1937, a programme broadcast on perhaps the light programme of the British Broadcasting...
Oh, Sheila challenge.
2 programmes.
Oh, yes.
2 programmes. A programme, yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Sheila, you've got in there with 50 seconds to go still on spectacles, starting now.
I am constantly losing my spectacles. I've even tried having those things that you hang round your neck, and I lose them along with it. However, yes.
Paul?
I wasn't challenging.
But it was a repetition.
Oh, yes, I was.
No, I wasn't challenged.
It was a repetition
Well,
of
no,
lose.
that case,
I
yes.
challenged
No,
myself, and I have
It was
a point.
losing, I think, Sheila.
No, you
said
challenged.
losing.
Yeah,
She
you said
did
losing.
repeat something.
She did.
But you didn't pick it up.
I didn't know.
So she gets the benefit of the doubt. You've got a point. You've got 40 seconds still available. And the subject is spectacles, starting now.
I have some that have a silver rim, others with horned rim. Horn, what
Tom
do you call
challenge.
it? Horn.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a repetition of rim.
There are too many rims
What
there,
is it?
yes.
Horn.
Yes, there were.
Horn-rimmed glasses.
Tom, spectacles is a subject. 34 seconds, starting now.
Some people love to draw attention to themselves. Oh, my shoes are uncomfortable. Oh, I've lost my phone.
Gyles challenge.
Repetition of, And a third one was coming up. I saw the lips puckering.
Gyles, 25 seconds available. Spectacles, starting now.
Spectacles is one of the most interesting words in the language. It dates from around 1340, comes to us from the French, spectacle, meaning things that are remarkable to see. Les Français, they introduced us to les spectacles hundreds of years ago.
Tom
Repetition
challenge.
de le spectacle.
Les spectacle is the word on the card, spectacle. Nicholas's pronunciation was very English, but spectacle is S-P-E-C-T-A-L-E-S. Spectacle, 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 it is. Of course, I mean that very graciously.
We enjoyed that, Gyles, but I can't give it to you, no, because I did say spectacles, and that's how you have to take it up from me. And so Tom's got in with the correct challenge with 8 seconds to go, starting now.
I've always wanted to wear spectacles because I think they make a man look very handsome indeed. I rather...
So Tom was then speaking as a whistle when, gained that extra point. Oh, he's moved forward. He's sitting in third place, but he's moved. And Sheila, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is flavour of the month.
Okay.
Flavour of the month. 60 seconds are available, and you start now.
Flavour of the month is something a lot of people tragically become when they appear on things like X Factor or that thing where they have to get out of a desert. And for a little while, they have their 15 minutes of fame by the tabloids.
Paul, challenge.
No.
I challenge, because 15 minutes of fame does not equate to a month. But I mean that very sweetly, and as I sort of...
Sorry, you've
But equally,
missed
the 15 minutes of fame as a phrase does not actually literally refer to 15 minutes.
Oh.
It means a short time, but not a quarter of an hour.
No, it is a phrase that is used as an epithet for that.
If you say so, Nicholas.
Well, I have to say so, because I'm in that position, and I
Good.
have to adjudicate. And anyway, it's incorrect challenge, Sheila. 45 seconds. Flavour of the month, starting now.
I think it started with ice creams. Some of the companies advertised 1 month it will be raspberry, then strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, nut, whatever. Every month will have a different flavour, and you will jolly well buy them because they are a variety, and it's lovely to have something different every time. However, sadly, the people on the programmes that I talked about previously, a lot of them end up desolate in the gutter, destroyed by what happened while they were famous. They took drugs, they were lauded and praised, but in fact it was, as Andy Warhol said...
So, Sheila, speaking as a whistleway, gained an extra point, and she's moved forward. And we're moving actually into the final round. You're so lovely. Right, let me get the situation as we do. Paul is trailing a little for once. Tom is just ahead of him. And then is Sheila, who leapt forward in that round. And she's 2 points behind our leader, who is still Gyles Brandreth. And Tom, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now is the Grand Old Duke of York. Tell us something about that character in this game, starting now.
The Grand Old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men, and he must have been exhausted.
Sheila, you challenge. I think that's an example of just a minute where you make a joke and you wait for the laugh.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is, Nick.
Because they have to think about it to get the gag. Right. But in that time, Sheila, you challenged.
Yeah, well, it was a hesitation.
It was a
You have to do
hesitation.
this awful thing of talking through laughs on this.
I'm
thing.
afraid
I
one
know.
does. That's the
No,
whole...
it's against all one's principles.
But it was worth it, wasn't it, everyone? It was a good laugh
Very
at that.
good joke.
We had a
Right.
great
Very good
laugh.
joke.
I don't mind.
Good. So, Sheila, 52 seconds are still available. You tell us something now about the Grand Old Duke of York, starting now.
He marched them all to the top of the hill, then he walked them down again. And I think at the moment we have a Duke of York who is...
Oh, Tom challenged.
Yes, there was a hesitation there.
I was trying to remember who it is. I know now.
43 seconds, Tom. The Grand Old Duke of York, it's back with you, starting now.
The song is apparently based on Prince Frederick, Duke of Albany and York, who led the British Army during the Napoleonic Wars over the...
Giles challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes,
I know, and I was
mean,
about to talk about you as well, Napoleon.
Ah.
we interpret that as hesitation, Giles. So you have the subject, the Grand Old Duke of York, 32 seconds available, starting now.
The grand old Duke of York, I'm afraid the rumors are true. He dabbled with illegal highs, because when he was up, oh boy, was he in an amazing place. And then he came down and was lower than a snake's belly. The current Duke of York will be grand and old one day. At the moment, he's known as Air Miles Andy, because he flies around the world meeting people that we have not heard of, but I'm sure he does it in the interests of the nation. He climbs up the stairs of the British Airways.
Right, so Gyles, Brandreth, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. So the final score. Paul, who sort of often wins, but he came in 4th place. He was behind Tom Allen, who was in 3rd place. He was only 2 or 3 points behind Sheila Hancock. And Sheila was 3 points behind Gyles Brandreth. So we say, Gyles, you are our winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul, Merton, Sheila Hancock, Gyles Brandreth and Tom Allen. I thank Beverly Tagg, who's helped me with the score and blown a whistle so elegantly. We're grateful to our producer, Matt Strong. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game, and we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here. So from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme for exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to play this incredible game. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Jenny Eclair, and seated on my left, Marcus Brigstocke and Al Murray. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me is Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the score. She'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton, Once Upon a Time. Talk on it if you can, starting now.
It is still unbelievable to me that I am playing Just a Minute on the British Broadcasting Corporation, because once upon a time I lived in a bedsit during the 1980s without television, where my only friend, well, I wouldn't say my, literally...
Jenny, you've challenged.
Only a tiny stumble. But you were talking the truth. I remember that bedsit, the one in Streatham.
Yeah.
Dreadful place. You've done very well for yourself, Paul.
Jenny, were you
string of them there.
Anyway, Jenny, that was a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. You take over the subject. There are 47 seconds still available. Once upon a time, starting now.
I don't think there is a parent in the land who has uttered the words once upon a time without thinking how long until the little brat nods off and I can nip downstairs and pour myself a nice, refreshing glass of Chardonnay juice. Once upon a time is usually set in the land of far away where princes and dragons roamed. My daughter used to prefer something grittier. I'd tell her stories that would begin once upon a time in a council flat off the old Kent Road lived a young bedwetting Jeff.
Paul, you've challenged.
No, I don't know. I was going to say a stumble, but I'm not sure. I think it was just the unexpected utterance of bedwetting that threw me. So I'm not sure. I'll say hesitation.
No, I don't think it was
No, I don't think it was either, actually.
Not strong enough. Jenny, it's an incorrect challenge. Get
I'm
another
doing
point.
terribly well already, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
I peaked, everybody.
You've got 2 points. You're in the lead. You've got 6 seconds still. Once upon a time, starting now.
With a pet rat. Of course, all the old traditional Grimm's fairy...
Oh, Paul, you challenged.
Did we have old before?
You did have old before, yes.
Well done, well done.
You'd peaked.
I've given up now.
And Paul, you cleverly got in with 1 second to go.
Oh, whatever. I share your disappointment.
Paul, a point to you, and you have 1 second. Once upon a time, starting now.
Once upon a...
In this game, Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Paul Merton, and he's in the lead with Jenny Eclair at the end of that round. The other two have yet to speak, and...
May that long
your time
continue.
will come, don't worry.
If only. I'm ready to speak.
I know. Well, I'm going to change the running order a bit and say, right, Al.
Oh, great.
Yes. Al, there's a subject which I think has been chosen specially for you. It is my ideal pub. So can you talk on that subject? 60 seconds are available if you want it, starting now.
Ales mild, brown and pale, lager stout and bitter, crisps, nuts, pork scratchings, saloon doors, sticky floors, a circle of flies around the pool table, eccentric drinkers, regular thinkers, a pub dog laid in front of a blue roaring gas fire, copper-top tables with a hammered effect, ploughman's lunches, the occasional fight on a Friday night, and a glass of white wine for the lady. That, for me, is the ideal pub.
Jenny,
He
has
paused, but only for the audience to give him... I know, all right. So
Jenny, darling, I'm going to interrupt you there because I thought he was so clever, never having played the game before.
Yeah.
Usually, if they get a round of applause, they stop.
Yes.
He didn't. He managed to keep going through the applause, which is the way you have to play it.
Okay. Do you know what? The applause was so loud I couldn't hear him. It's the audience's fault.
Anyway, Al, you've got a point
Oh,
for
great.
an incorrect challenge, and you keep the subject. You've still got 30 seconds if you need it. Why are you groaning? My ideal pub, Al, starting now.
Such a convivial place exists purely in the imagination, except tonight, when after this recording of Just a Minute, you, me, Jenny, Paul, Marcus, Hayley, who's the assistant here on the show, and this wonderful audience will step from this historic theatre.
All right, Paul, a challenge.
No Nicholas, then.
I said she was the you. Nicholas was the you and me.
That's a shame.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, to be fair to him, when he said you, he did point to me.
Oh,
But
did he? Oh,
it wasn't very good radio. It wasn't very good radio. So, what, has he got a challenge within the rules of Just a
No, I
Minute?
just wanted to point something out, but there we are.
Incorrect challenge, Al. Another point to you, and you have got my ideal pub. You still have 10 seconds if you want it, starting now.
A time.
Marcus, you've challenged.
Yeah, there was a long time at the bar.
Yeah, that was a definite hesitation, Al. Point to Marcus, takes over the subject. 9 seconds to go. My ideal pub, Marcus, starting now.
My ideal pub has brightly coloured furniture. Wow, that did not go well.
That was a hesitation.
No, it wasn't.
He muffed it.
No. It was a deviation from English as we understand it.
Okay, I'll accept your challenge, Nicholas. Thank you.
So another point to Al Murray, who's taken the lead now. And there's still 6 seconds to go, Al. My ideal pub, starting now.
Should we all join together in my ideal pub, we would drink deep from the sweet...
So, Al Murray started with the subject, and he finished with the subject. Got that extra point for doing so, and he's taken a commanding lead. Doesn't often happen when the virgin player of the game comes up in that situation. Jenny, we'd like you to begin the next round. Flying saucers. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Flying saucers were an occupational hazard when I used to work at Nico's Greek restaurant back in the 80s. Every evening, saucers and other pieces of crockery would whiz past my ear, some containing remnants of meals, souvlaki, dolmades, hummus, tzatziki, olives, usually...
Al challenge.
Deviation, these things aren't served in saucers.
I said, and other crockery, Al, I think you'll find.
I think she was conveying that the Greeks do, on occasions, get excited and throw the crockery about.
Yes.
And they throw the plates and smash the plates.
Another compelling Brexit argument there, Nicholas.
But I disagree with your challenge, Al.
Fair enough.
So, Jenny, you get a point, and you keep the subject. Flying saucers, starting now.
Many's the time I'd come home, not with china in my hand, but my hair. Also, dribbles of that funny fishy rose stuff that doesn't smell nice.
Paul challenge.
Why are you coming home with your hair in your hands? you're working as a waitress.
OK, I said that I'd often come home with china in my hair, not my hand.
Did you say that?
I've no idea. What did I say?
I don't know. I'm not the only one who's
Well,
not
I
listening.
think she said that. What did the audience think? They were listening. There you are.
Thank
So,
you.
Jenny, you got a point for an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject. There are 25 seconds still available. Flying saucers starting now.
Other flying saucers, I've been bullied in the workplace, Nicholas.
Ah, but that's part of the fun,
Yeah.
isn't it? Right. Paul, you challenge first.
Yes, hesitation.
Hesitation, you've got a point. Correct challenge. There are 23 seconds still available. Paul, flying saucers starting now.
You have a huge belief in flying saucers shortly after the Second World War, where the Americans blamed the Russians for flying into their airspace. And certainly it seemed that science fiction novels got hold of this concept of aliens from another planet. Maybe it reflected in a way the Red Scare, but certainly it's true that the golden age of SF stories was created in those times. And flying saucers...
So Paul Merton speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. And we got 3 people in the lead here. Paul Merton, Jenny Eclair and Al Money all together in the lead. Marcus is trailing a little. And Marcus, it's your turn to begin.
Oh, good.
The Amazon. Tell us something about the Amazon in this game, starting now.
The Amazon is a long, beautiful, winding river that does not make much of a contribution to the tax take of this country, unfortunately. I belong to Amazon Prime, which means I can get a lump of rainforest sent to me within 12 hours of clicking on a button, and I don't even have to pay for it because they take the money up front and then refuse to share it out. It's full of all sorts of wild species, and it's roughly the size of Wales, if everybody's reports on it are to be believed. Either that or that country has disappeared in the last minute while I've been speaking. I wish it had taken as long as that. It probably hasn't.
Jenny, challenge.
Only because it was 3 that's.
Yes.
That.
Yeah.
Well listened. So you've got another point and a correct challenge. And 25 seconds are still available. Tell us something about the Amazon, starting now.
The Amazon reviews of my latest novel, Moving, are really rather good. Why don't you check on it after this show? You may feel tempted to buy the book itself. There are others available. This was my 4th. Other titles include... I said all I wanted to say, to be quite honest. Take it away.
Paul, you've challenged, yes?
A repetition of other.
That's right, yes. And so also she's talking about a book and not the Amazon, really. So, Paul, you've got him in 9 seconds to go, having got another point. The Amazon starting now.
I was seeing very recent news that said that at the base of the Amazon they've found this coral reef which they didn't know was there. And what a wonderful picture was in the newspaper. I looked at it and said...
So, Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle wind, gained an extra point. And, Paul, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is now playing second fiddle. Something you don't often do, but talk on the subject, if you can, starting now.
There was a famous New York conductor, and he said, I want to hear the finest violinist in the city. So the whole audition was erased, and 500 violinists...
Wait a minute, Al, you've challenged.
He said an audition was erased.
Yeah, I was going too quick.
Deviation from the English language.
Absolutely.
Yes, so deviation. Well, listen, Al.
Thank
You've got
you.
53 seconds if you need it.
Oh.
Playing second fiddle, starting now.
Playing second fiddle is seen as a bad thing. Wouldn't you rather be first fiddle? But no, I will play second fiddle every single time. For the premier fiddle in the arrangement is the fiddle that, after all, has to cope with all the flack, the tension, the difficulty, the criticism.
Jenny challenged.
We are letting small words go, but that was a 4th. The. Oh, do you know what?
What?
I don't play second fiddle for no one. You can have the round back.
Correct, Jenny.
right.
Yeah, she's right.
She's right.
So
I don't like it,
No,
but she's right.
but you're very sporting, and she's
Tough
right.
here.
So it's
Tough at the top.
Right.
Thank you.
So, Jenny...
Do you know what? I don't think I'll have this round for very long.
Well, try. You've got 36 seconds if you need it. Playing second fiddle,
Perhaps you
starting
could
now.
recommend one of your other books to us. I was much heartened by your message that other books are available. I thought that was a nice touch to remind us of that.
Jenny, the subject is playing second fiddle. There are 36 seconds available, starting now.
How to Play Second Fiddle by Jenny Eclair is available on Amazon and in bookshops up and down your high street or town.
Paul challenge.
A repetition of book.
No, she didn't say book in that round.
No, she said bookshops, didn't she?
So an incorrect challenge. So Jenny has another point. And she has 27 seconds. Playing second fiddle. Jenny, starting now.
I tell the tale that I... No.
Al, you challenge first.
Right, come on.
Put me out of my misery, thank you.
She did up there. Yeah, she did that. Yeah.
Well, will you tell me what she did so I know?
She deviated from the English language and via a sort of mode of hesitation.
Is
that good enough for you?
No, she hesitated.
Yes, she hesitated. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I'm glad I got it out of you in the end, right? So a point to you, Al, and there are 25 seconds still available. Playing second fiddle, starting now.
Say you go to a prom at the Royal Albert Hall, a fantastic occasion. An orchestra is in full flight. And what do you see in front of you? Well, you see violins, you see brass. Oh, you donut!
Paul, you challenge first.
Do you see
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, 2
I
minutes.
know I did it.
I could see it dawning on you on the third one.
Paul, another point to you, and 16 seconds available. Playing second fiddle, starting now.
So they all turn up, and none of them are any good, but apart from the last two. And one of them is brilliantly, beautifully dressed. He opens up this immaculate case, produces this stringed instrument, and starts to play, but it's a bit mediocre. And he's told to leave. There's a tramp in the corner. He gets a...
So Paul Merton, speakers of Whistle Wen, gained another point and has increased his lead. But he only...
Can we have the punchline?
It's a
right.
true story, really. So this tramp opens up this battered old case and a terrible violin. It looks terrible, awful. He picks it up, and he was worse than the bloke before him.
I'll give him a bonus point for that. Right. So, Paul, you're 2 points ahead of Jenny Eclair and 3 points ahead of Al Murray and a few more ahead of Marcus Brigstocke.
Yeah. In
Jenny!
a minute, I'm going to go and sit with the audience, to be honest.
Jenny, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is a lick of paint. You have 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
A lick of paint can brighten the gloomiest room. What I love are those shades from the posh shop, What's It and Thingy. Those colours...
Marcus challenge.
I'm quite familiar with posh shops, and What's It and Thingy doesn't exist.
They went bankrupt in 1948.
They did, yeah.
Do you know, I was going to say Farrow and Ball, but then I thought I might get sued.
Yes, you wouldn't want to be advertising, would you?
Though I could do with some free paint.
Marcus, I think you need the benefit of the doubt and say you have another point.
I think I need all the help I can get, Nicholas.
No, you're always such good value on the show.
Thank
but
you.
You have 52 seconds on this occasion. A lick of paint starting now.
I once had a lick of paint and it was absolutely delicious. My tongue was covered in a sour, lemony daubing that I was supposed to put all over the walls of my daughter's bedroom, but she was livid, so I thought I'd eat it instead. I've made a habit of that sort of thing, to be perfectly honest with you. In any case, we did our house up in Farrow and Ball, which is absolutely lovely. They're tremendous company, and I'd recommend their stuff to anyone. I do hope I get a commission. I'm thinking of writing a book about their wonderful range of paint colours and how I've eaten them all. They do beige, taupe, stone, water, drip.
Jenny, you challenge.
Repetition, those are all the same colours.
Don't tell posh people they're all the same. They'll be furious.
But the point is, Jenny, this Just a Minute is all about words and language.
Yeah.
And so they might be all the same colour, but he wasn't using the same words. So it wasn't repetition. So you get the benefit of the doubt, Marcus. Ooh.
There's a turn up for the book.
16 seconds still available, Marcus. A lick of paint starting now.
I'll tell you what could do with a lick of paint is the House of Commons.
Jenny challenge.
Repetition of house.
Oh, yes, because you were talking about doing it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Right.
Well, listen, Jenny. So you're moving forward and catching up Paul. A lick of paint, 12 seconds available, Jenny, starting now.
Tones entitled Mick Jagger's Breath. Hypertension purple.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes,
After
she
Mick
said it
Jagger's
for
breath.
reaction and didn't get it. No. And,
You know, Nicholas, that's called riding the non-existent laugh. Badly.
So, Paul, correct challenge. 7 seconds are still available. A lick of paint starting now.
I was down the shed the other day and I looked inside and I thought to myself, what this place needs is a lick of paint. I'm going to start with blue just there.
So Paul Merton is then again speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Al Murray, we're back with you to begin. Al, the subject is now my hidden talent. I don't know if you have one or not. Tell us something about my hidden talent starting now.
Were I to reveal my hidden talent, it would no longer be a hidden talent. But I've always wondered, sat in front of the television, watching the Olympics with my dinner in my lap, whether really the greatest pole vaulter in the world is the person that should be accorded that title. For after all, I've never done that activity. I've never even attempted or... Oh, you...
Marcus, you challenge.
Yes, a repetition of never.
That's right, never. Right. And there are 41 seconds still available, Marcus. My hidden talent starting now.
My hidden talent is dancing, and for listeners at home...
Al challenge.
I've seen him. It isn't. Lying.
Maybe there's a good reason why he keeps it hidden.
He's entitled to think it's his hidden talent.
All right.
So, no, Al.
I withdraw my challenge.
No, don't worry.
My
We
delusional
enjoyed the
hidden
interruption.
talent.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you a bonus
I
point
didn't.
for
As
that.
far as I'm concerned, this is a dance-off, step-up style.
So a bonus point to Al.
Step outside.
Which the audience enjoyed it. But Marcus gets a point for the incorrect challenge. My hidden talent, still with you, Marcus. 37 seconds starting now.
Leaping and prancing as I am now, to the delight of the audience sitting here this evening, who are absolutely shocked into silence as they look at the beautiful shapes I'm throwing, rather like Rudolf Nureyev as I leap around the studio. Hear them gasp, listeners. I'm making the most extraordinary shapes and patterns.
A Paul challenge.
Marcus, come down. It was repetition of shapes.
Yeah,
sadly.
that was shapes, yeah.
Yes, I know. It was part of the choreography, though, so I had to.
Right. Paul,
Yes.
you have a correct challenge. You have another point. You have 15 seconds if you need it. My hidden talent starting now.
Like most hidden talents, it's often perpetrated at night when nobody else can see you. I will explain to you in 3 simple steps what my hidden talent is. The first one is I like to dress up as characters from comic books. For example...
So Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went. Gained that extra point. Has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Marcus Brigstocke, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now, Neil Armstrong. Tell us something about that subject in this game starting now.
Her Majesty the Queen raised the beautiful ornamental sword and said to the great jazz trumpeter, Neil Armstrong. And Satchmo bent down and she dubbed him Sir Louis Armstrong. But that's probably not what this was originally about, as much as I'm a fan of his. Neil Armstrong was, of course, the first person, or so he claims, to have walked on the moon. As we all know, those of us who wear tinfoil hats, it was actually all done in a studio just outside Hollywood by some very bad people in America, not nearly as naughty as they are these days, obviously. But he walked, and he was so happy. Damn it, walked.
Jenny.
He said walked
Yes,
twice.
he did,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
So another point to you, Jenny. And you tell us something about Neil Armstrong in this game starting now.
There was a boy at my school called Neil Armstrong. His brother was Barry Armstrong.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, Net Barry. Deviation from names.
Barry. You're right.
So what
Please
is your
take your hand
challenge?
away.
Deviation from names?
Yeah.
Well, she
Well,
didn't use the word Barry before.
No, she said Net Barry.
Oh, all
Nick
right.
Berry.
Right. So, a correct challenge. I don't know what it was, but a correct challenge. 14 seconds for you, Marcus, on Neil Armstrong, starting now.
I went to space once. It was freezing. I'm never going back. I think the heating's broken, to be perfectly honest with you. The point being, they poked a flag in the moon, and now it belongs.
Al challenge.
He said moon last time round.
You did indeed,
Repetition
yes.
of moon.
Yes.
Double moon.
Double moon. So, Al, you've got in with another point, and 4 seconds only for Neil Armstrong, starting now.
Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins and Buzz Aldrin were the first men upon the moon in
So we're moving into the final round, and it's a very close contest. Marcus is trailing just a little, but Al Murray, Jenny Eclair, and Paul Merton are almost equal in the lead. Just 1 point separates all three of them. If you can work that one out, you're better than me. And Paul, it's your turn to begin, and the subject's a lovely one, Edith Piaf. Tell us something about that amazing woman in this game, starting now.
Edith Piaf was an amazing woman. She was French and she used to sing quite a bit. She was known as the Little Sparrow, I believe. She was somebody that was...
Al challenge.
He said her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a hesitation.
Absolutely.
right,
In
yes.
anyone's book.
Yeah.
Don't lay down the law, I know.
Oh, I'm just clearing it up, you know.
So 53 seconds are still available for you, Al, because you've got in with the correct challenge. Edith Piaf, starting now.
Non, regrette rien. Je ne re-
Marcus, you challenged.
Yeah, deviation from the lyrics of the song. You missed it. You missed out a je.
Oh, it doesn't really matter. You can still do
Does
that.
if you're French. They're very fastidious
But he
about
didn't
it.
say at the beginning, I'm now going to do an impersonation of Edith Piaf.
I was making the song my own.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trying to get through to judges' houses.
Yeah.
So I think within the
Piaf.
rules of just a minute, Marcus, I must give it the benefit of the doubt to
Yes,
Al.
quite right.
Another point to him. Edith Piaf is still with you, Al. 48 seconds available, starting now.
Edith Piaf was one of the world's greatest proponents of the double negative. In her most famous song, she said that she did not regret nothing. This, to me, seems to be an error, because if you say that, you're clearly contradicting yourself in the most fundamental way. In this country, we don't have singers like that. We have Vera Lynn instead. And what Vera...
Oh, it's a tough game, isn't it? Right. And Marcus, you challenge first.
Yes, Vera Balls, very successful. Very successful
Another
singer.
point to you, Marcus. 27 seconds available. Edith Piaf, starting now.
Moi, je t'aime Edith Piaf et je visite à Paris beaucoup de temps.
Al challenge.
Two jeux.
I was making up for the one you cut out earlier.
you were.
No, there was a je and a j'ai.
You did say, you're right.
Yeah,
You said je and then j'ai.
yeah.
J'ai is the apostrophe. of je.
Insupportable. Je suis pas content avec cette intervention.
Marcus, 23 seconds still available. Edith Piaf, starting now.
I love the music of Edith Piaf, but I do think it's a shame that she was unable to include amongst her lyrics my favourite French word, which is donc, and means therefore. You can plonk it in the middle of any sentence and it brightens the whole thing up. Edith Piaf was tiny. She was nearly an inch, apparently, and was often lost.
Al's challenge.
Lots of wazzies.
Oh, yes, she was.
Yeah,
Yes.
true.
Well listened. You're sitting beside him, so you've got the benefit on there. And
Yes,
Al,
he can hear it before the others.
So you see in this game, if you lose it, you can get it back again and get points. So Al, you've got him with 5 seconds to go on Edith Piaf, starting now.
Edith Piaf was a...
Jenny.
It was a huge hesitation because he thought he couldn't say was again, even though that had been Marcus's mistake.
Right. A
He
point.
got confused.
No, it's more I didn't really have anything to say.
Jenny, a correct challenge. You've got in there with 3 seconds to go. Edith Piaf, starting now.
Was brought up by prostitutes. Her father was an acrobat.
So, Jenny Eclair was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. It only remains for me to give you the final score. Marcus Brigstocke came in 4th place. He was just behind Al Murray, and he was 1 point behind Jenny Eclair, and Jenny was 3 points behind Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are the winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Jenny Eclair, Marcus Brigstocke and Al Murray. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle so well. We're indebted to our producer, Matt Strong. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're indebted to this lovely audience here. So from the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, thank you. Tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute. welcome to Just a Minute. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme four exciting, talented performers who are going to speak for just a minute on the subject that I give them and try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josie Lawrence, and seated on my left, Zoe Lyons and Graham Norton. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Paul, it's a lovely subject here. I beg your pardon. Can you talk on that subject in this game starting now?
I beg your pardon, 4 words that can be used with different intentions. I beg your pardon could be said to somebody who you think has been rather arrogant or has treated you in a rather shabby way. Or perhaps, I beg your pardon is something you say when you want somebody to repeat themselves, which in this game...
Josie challenged.
I think, no, got it wrong. Sorry, I thought there was a repetition of somebody, but there wasn't.
No, there wasn't, darling.
Sorry. No, I know. No. All right.
So an incorrect challenge. So Paul gets a point for that. And there are still 43 seconds available,
43.
Paul. I beg your pardon. The subject starting now.
As I floated down the Amazon, I could hear the voice of the chief elephant hunter in my ear. I beg your pardon, he bellowed across the water as I saw my arch-enemy Tarzan swinging from tree to limb. I then realised my fate was in my own hands. I beg your pardon, I said to the giant alligator as its teeth were thrown at me by Nicholas Parsons, who was the ship's chef. Everything to him was food.
Graham challenged.
I'm sensing deviation.
15 seconds are still available,
15.
Graham. I beg your pardon, starting now.
I beg your pardon is an apology of sorts, and yet sometimes I feel isn't quite adequate. For instance, if I was in the back of a cab and vomited on the taxi driver's head, I beg your pardon wouldn't quite cover it.
In this game, whoever is speaking with the whistle goes gains an extra point, and it was Graham Norton, so he's naturally in the lead at the end of the round. Josie, will you begin the next round?
Yes.
Quinoa. You know something about... What's funny about that?
Yes.
A lot of us love it. And Josie will tell you something about it in 60 seconds if she can, starting now.
Well, it was 2003, and I'm in a back street in Lima. My mate runs out of this little shop holding a plastic bag of what looks like grey pellets. I'm so excited, she enthused. This is quinoa. Very good for you. It was only years later we realised the correct pronunciation for this is quinoa, Nicholas. Yes, it does begin with a Q and a U, like corn and quiche and other healthy foodstuffs like qued and quatter and a bottle of quine or a glass of queer. Now, quinoa is actually a seed, a grain, and that's why so many people love this organic stuff. A member of the beetroot family, and you can actually eat the leaves in salad, though I've never tried that. Like rice cakes.
Josie, I'm also going to do it night for you for half a second. You went for 59.5 seconds without being interrupted. In other words, the whistle went as Paul challenged her, so we say you were speaking as the whistle went, so you not only get a point for speaking as the whistle went, but an extra point for not being interrupted. What a wonderful achievement. So, at the end of the round, you're equal in the lead with Graham Norton. Zoe Lyons, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is ploughing my own furrow. Ploughing my own furrow, 60 seconds, Zoe, starting now.
Sometimes when I tire of the murky city streets and the hustle and bustle of all of those around me, I dream of taking myself to somewhere in the countryside where I will live in a field and plough my own furrow on a daily basis. I haven't decided yet whether I will use an automatic machine to plough my furrow, like a tractor, or indeed a combine harvester, perhaps I will take the more natural route and employ a small pony with a wooden device behind him as I merrily walk up and down said mudded area, ploughing my furrow as I go. And I will plant some seeds and fruits and vegetables. Perhaps...
Well done. You went for 43 seconds.
The fruits was pushing it, wasn't it?
The audience could see your face. It became more and more tense. But, Paul, you challenged.
It's a hesitation.
It was hesitation, yes. Well, she came to a blinding halt, didn't she? Ploughing my own furrow, Paul. You have 17 seconds available, starting now.
Back in the 1970s, when I had the ambition to be a professional comedian, one day I'll get there, you just see, it was very difficult to have any idea of how you would advance yourself within the profession, because at the time, the only options open were sort of end of the pier shows, Cambridge footlights, that sort of...
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's 1 point ahead of all the others into that round. Graham, we're with you to begin. The Blarney Stone. Ah. I'm sure you must know something about that, but tell us about it in just a minute if you can, starting now.
The Blarney Stone is, interestingly, a stone in Blarney. Blarney is the name of a place outside Cork in Southern Ireland. There is a Blarney woolen mills, which is very nice for coffee and cake, and you can buy a rug after the sales. It's quite cheap right now. They do them in a variety of styles, mohair being my favourite. Meanwhile, in a castle nearby, there's a stone.
Paul challenge.
Oh, you didn't say castle before, did
No.
you?
No, he didn't. No, he
I gave no details at all.
No. I was going to say repetition of castle, but I'll save that one.
An incorrect challenge, Graham, so you get a point for that. There are still 33 seconds available. The Blarney Stone starting now.
Allegedly, and I cannot stress that word enough, the people who work in Blarney Castle hate the tourists.
Oh, it's a fiendishly difficult game.
I'm psychic.
Paul, Josie pressed her buzzer first.
A repetition of castle.
Yeah.
Did I?
Right. 26 seconds are still available, Josie. The Blarney Stone starting now.
I'm afraid I know very little about the Blarney Stone, although my
Graham challenge.
I just thought I'd help her.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how. I mean, I hardly got us going on what I know about the Blarney Stone.
He's told us more about the woolen mills than the Blarney Stone.
You can buy rugs there, apparently.
Yeah, it's very nice.
And there's a castle.
Two of them.
There's a car park also, but it's not my subject. You take it.
Well, she gets it because of an incorrect challenge, and she gets a point for that. And there's still 22 seconds available, Josie, and it's the Blarney Stone starting now.
I do know, however, that it's very lucky.
Oh, who's...
Repetition
Paul.
of no.
Yes,
I don't
you
know
did.
much about it.
Yes, well done. That was good.
Yes. Sharp,
I
yeah.
appreciate that noise you made. It resembles the noise that TV audiences made in the 1950s when they were shown a caravan from behind some curtains. Like Sailor of the Century.
Yes.
Just to
Thank you
clear
for
it
that
up, we're talking
round
about
of
the 20th
applause.
century rather than the...
Who's challenged? Paul challenged.
Paul.
And there are 20 seconds still available, Paul. The Blarney Stone starting now.
The first time I went to Blarney, I was very excited. I was going to say very, very.
You haven't played the
Josie,
game before.
Josie, you got in first. A point to you for hesitation. The Blarney Stone, Josie, and 17 seconds starting now.
Apparently, it's very lucky to kiss the Blarney Stone. There's quite a drop down. You have to bend over backwards, something I haven't done for years. My grandfather actually came from Cork, so maybe he did.
So Josie Lawrence was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and she's taken a very strong lead ahead of the other three. And Paul, we're back with you to begin, and the subject, a very cultural one, David Livingstone.
A bit of a specialist subject with me, David Livingstone, actually. Scottish explorer, but I'll save it for the,
Right. There are 60 seconds for you, Paul. David Livingstone starting now.
I know nothing about David Livingstone.
Graham, you challenged first.
I did. He stopped.
Shall we call that
heavy
hesitation? So a point to Graham, and there are 57 seconds still available. David Livingstone starting now.
David Livingstone was a Scottish explorer. That's how much I know. I know. You knew that. That's the only reason I know that.
He's doing my material.
Zoe, you've gone in first.
It was another hesitation. Grinding halt.
Another
I think
point
I'll
to
be
you,
very, very
Zoe.
close behind.
53 seconds available. David Livingstone, what is your little comment going to be? Starting now.
David Livingstone actually grew up in Edinburgh, which is a surprise when we know that he ended up in the warm places of Africa, exploring its many nooks and crannies, probably furrowing his own plough as he went. He...
Josie
I'm
challenge.
sorry, there was a bit of a hesitation.
She knew what she was talking about.
I don't think you can furrow a plough.
No,
You can try.
he discovered that.
I thought you did that deliberately to get a laugh, actually, Zoe.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you.
But it didn't get much of a laugh.
No.
I don't know. Josie, 38 seconds are still available. David Livingstone starting now.
Well, David Livingstone went off to look for the source of the Nile, I think, and Stanley found him after he'd been missing for about 6 years, and that's where apparently you had that famous quote, "Ooh, Mr. Livingstone, I..."
No, Paul challenged.
Dr. Livingstone,
Yeah,
I
that's
presume.
right.
Who would
He's
know?
the famous quote.
Who would know?
Well, I think I've got to give the benefit of the doubt to Paul because
He worked for the
because
Times.
the famous quote is, it's very well.
Dr. Livingstone,
I presume. I've
Yeah.
got this terrible backache. What do you think's wrong with it? That's the whole quote.
You see, the full quote is, "Mr. Livingstone, I presume," and then he went, "No, doctor."
Well tried, Josie. I enjoyed that, but it wasn't correct. I mean, the phrase which everybody knows is Dr. Livingstone, I presume. And
I know.
Paul got in with 22 seconds to go and a point, of course. David Livingstone starting now.
As David Livingstone waved goodbye to his wife, he got on board the ship and he thought to himself, "Zambia, here I come." Meanwhile, the ship's captain was looking askance at this new passenger. He heard that Dr. Livingstone was a man who wanted to see where man came from. It was believed...
Oh, Zoe challenged.
It's a repetition of man. I
Yes.
think, there.
And
Yes.
And sometimes...
You've seen that caravan again, haven't you?
Zoe, you cleverly got in with 4 seconds to go on David Livingstone starting now.
The last days of David Livingstone's life were a miserable affair.
So, Zoe Lyons have got a point then for speaking as a whistle when... Oh, it's a very interesting situation. 1 point separates them all, going down from Josie, Paul, Graham, Zoe. Josie, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is, how do you like your eggs in the morning?
How do you like your eggs in the...
That's the
Nicholas.
phrase. How do you like your eggs in the morning? 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
How do you like your eggs in the morning? I like mine with a kiss. It's a famous song, but I do not enjoy snogging and eggs at the same time, so that doesn't appeal to me. Oh, the comfort of getting up at breakfast time and having boiled eggs. I have 2 of them, and that lovely gloopy yellow yolk that you dip your tiny soldiers in, not the human kind, that would be cannibalism. And scrambled eggs are my very most favourite. Now, a little cooking tip here. If you take the eggs off the heat before they're cooked, it makes it all the more creamier and moist. Then, of course, there's omelettes. Who doesn't like that? Well, perhaps some people do, but they are stupid. You can put...
Paul, you challenged.
Hesitation after a heartfelt statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Correct challenge, Paul. Another point, and you've cleverly got him with 6 seconds to go.
Again.
They didn't like that caravan.
No.
They didn't like that one. That looks one difficult to park, that one.
How do you like your eggs in the morning, Paul? 6 seconds starting now.
Well, there's so many ways to do them, isn't there? Scrambled, fried, poached, omelettes.
So Paul got the point for speaking as the whistle went. Has moved forward. He's now equal with Josie Lawrence in the lead, and then for other two follow. Zoe, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is something very much very popular at the moment: fake news. That's the subject. Fake news, Zoe. 60 seconds starting now.
Fake news is, of course, very much in the headlines at the moment, as we are all aware. And I, for one, am a massive fan of fake news because, to be honest, it's actually more favourable than the real items that are out there at the moment. If you were to tell me a year ago that a large man with an orange face and a thatch for hair was going to be the leader of the free world, I would have said...
Paul, challenge.
Nicholas, is this true?
You're incorrigible. That was a very nice joke.
Thank you.
Well done. Give him a bonus point.
Thank you very much.
Shows you how generous and spirited I am. Right.
Thank you.
But it was an incorrect challenge.
Right.
Yes.
And fake news is still with you, Zoe, and there are 37 seconds available starting now.
I've even started producing my own fake news to make my miserable life seem more interesting to those around me. I will often post pictures on Facebook where I appear to be on holiday somewhere pleasant, perhaps like Thailand or Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia or even... There's a lot of oars. There's a lot of oars, isn't there?
Paul, your challenge?
It was a bit Oxford-Cambridge boat race, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of oars.
Paul, you got in. Another point to you. Fake news is still the subject. And 21 seconds starting now.
Fake news isn't necessarily a modern phenomenon. You can look at film of reconstructions of the First World War where battle scenes which were intended to be those were actually shot on Salisbury Plain. Fake news these days is very worrying because people can't be sure where the actual story is coming from. Is it a Twitter feud that's blawed? Start talking about stuff I don't know about.
It was either deviation or hesitation. It was one or the other.
It was
for
both.
definite.
But I can only give you 1 point, I'm afraid.
That's fine.
That's
I'll
all right.
take it
You'll
gratefully.
take it. The point and the subject, and you've got him with 2 seconds to go. Fake news starting now.
Fake news is surely something that...
So Norton speaking as the whistle went. And he's moved forward. He's in 3rd place, but he's only 1 point behind Josie Lawrence, who's 1 point behind Paul Merton, a few points ahead of Zoe Lyons. And Graham, Marie Tussaud.
What?
Marie Tussaud.
Oh, I see you're speaking. Yes.
Yeah. I was pronouncing it correctly in French.
No, you were. Very French.
You can take the English pronunciation if you wish.
Okay.
Marie Tussaud. Talk about her if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
Marie Tussaud was a French woman who lived in France. She was married to a man who had chronic earwax, and she would mould the extractions from his head into well-known celebrities of the Gallic persuasion in that time.
Silly challenge.
I'm going to go for deviation with the earwax.
No, it's true.
Is it?
You have to practice somewhere. You don't just start at the top and make a full body.
That's a lot of wax, though, Graham. That's a very...
Yeah, but we have
yummy
to have flights of fantasy sometimes.
Okay.
So as you probably are technically correct, I won't charge any points on that one, but leave the subject with Graham and say there are 39 seconds available. Marie Tussaud starting now.
Marie Tussaud opened Madame Tussauds at some point a long time ago in London. I, unbelievably, was a waxwork in it. Now, I wasn't melted down, but I was moved to Blackpool. I'm not sure which is worse. If you want to have your picture taken with me in a very old suit.
Paul,
I'd take melted down any day of the week.
Paul, you challenged.
Just a comment, really. So I've done it. It's gone.
So, Graham, it wasn't a correct challenge, so you were interrupted. You get a point for that. And you have 19 seconds. Marie Tussaud starting now.
Marie Tussaud!
Paul, you've challenged.
Well, it actually was a hesitation after...
It was, yes.
I used so much breath saying her name.
So, Paul, you have a correct challenge that time. Marie Tussaud is with you, and there are 17 seconds available, starting now.
When Nicholas Parsons was approached to have his likeness in wax displayed at Madame Tussauds, he was explained that he would have to be taken from several different characters that were no longer in the public eye. So, partially speaking, he was made up of Bismarck, Lassie, and the man that used to lock up at night in the Ealing films.
Well done, Paul. Another point to you because speaking the whistle went. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. Oh, my world record. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Well, technically, this is something I share with Josie, Lyons and 4 other people in the Guinness Book of Records of the Comedy Store Players, the improvisation group of which we are both members, is officially recognised as the longest running in the world. And so we were very happy to receive a gift certificate each, which was equivalent to about 35 pence worth of prizes. But nevertheless, that is my world record. In India, when I was filming, it's very important to Indians to establish themselves as individuals among so many billions of people that they search out world records that they can excel at. And there is a publication not dissimilar to the one I mentioned earlier, but they're a bit broader about the records that they accept. So, for example, if you wanted to say, I will eat a record number of pickled onions while swimming underwater, reciting Anthony Quinn's filmography, you can establish... I'm glad, sir, there's the former record holder here tonight, who got as far as Zorba the Greek before, unfortunately, he had to return to the surface. World records today aren't what they used to be.
So Paul Merton was speaking when the whistle went. He started with the subject. He kept going for 60 seconds without interruption. So he gets a point for speaking the whistle went and a bonus point for not being interrupted. Well done. Josie, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is Sherwood Forest. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Sherwood Forest is a forest in Nottinghamshire, and it's known mainly because of a very famous person. I'm talking, of course, about Robin Hood. Was he fact or fiction? A lot of scholars are out on that one. There is a huge amount of vegetation in this forest. It's very dense. But let's go back to the oldie-worldy days. Maid Marian's in her bedroom, and her boyfriend is wanted by the horrid people. So he borrows her hooded tunic and 30 denier green tights and goes off to live in Sherwood Forest, where he makes his hiding place in a huge oak. There are other trees in the forest: birch, fir, elm, pine, and of course you.
Graham, you challenged.
I misheard. I thought you said there were pie trees, and I thought I don't know much about nature, but I'm pretty sure pies don't exist in nature. I'm so sorry.
I would love a pie tree. It would be nice to have a pie
would be
tree.
lovely. But you said pine.
Pine,
I did.
she said pine, yes. And so an incorrect challenge, Josie. Another point to you. 7 seconds available. Sherwood Forest, starting now.
With which to make bow and arrows from. The merry...
Zoe challenged.
Slight hesitation.
Yes, because she finished on a
Slight
preposition.
hesitation. It was tiny, but I'm losing so badly that I'm now going for any
You're well in the
opportunity.
game, and I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Did you say repetition of Merry Men?
And there was possibly repetition of Merry Men, which is just a...
She didn't say that.
No. So I'm going to let that one go.
She said it once. She was going to say it again.
There's still 3 seconds available.
3 seconds to go.
For you, Zoe. Sherwood Forest, starting now.
I once went camping in Sherwood Forest and it rained.
So we're moving into the final round. I'll give you the situation. Josie Lawrence, Zoe Lyons and Graham Norton are all equal in second place, behind our leader, who's Paul Merton. He's a few points ahead of them. And Zoe, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is shoehorn. Tell us something about shoehorn in this game, starting now.
I was never a tremendously musical child, and I was resistant to join the orchestra as a young person until I found the instrument that best suited my personality, which was, of course, the shoehorn. More easy to carry around than the large, cumbersome double bass, and indeed sweeter on the ear than the French horn or the trumpet. The shoehorn can indeed be worn to an event, which is another advantage of this piece of apparatus. It is a sweet sweet, delicate sound similar.
Oh, Graham, you can't. Yes, that's right. So, Graham, a point to you. There are 28 seconds still available. The subject is shoehorn, starting now.
I've got a shoehorn. It's fantastic. Let me tell you about it. It's made of bone. It's got a handle. It's got a little leather thing at the top of the...
Zoe challenge.
There's a couple of its in there. A couple of its.
Am I being... It's gotta.
Is that not allowed?
All out war at the end of the show.
It's gotta.
It's got.
It's gotta.
What are you all talking about?
It's like they're carrying me across the line.
He repeated it's got to.
He repeated it, right?
Yes, I did.
For the sake of our listeners, actually, the audience are laughing now at the visual antics of Graham and Zoe.
Steady, listeners. That's not my shoehorn.
I have a shoehorn, but I use it for my shoes.
Pervert.
Is yours bone?
Yes, it is. Some say you're bone idle not to use your finger, but I use it.
Because you've got to be able to stretch it to get your foot in, haven't you?
Oh, it is fun, isn't it, playing? But Zoe, a correct challenge. You have 20 seconds on shoehorn, starting now.
My mother has a large collection of shoehorns. She has one that has a kaleidoscope effect on the handle so that it can be put inside a handbag when she travels. Why she needs to promenade with a shoehorn, I have never quite worked out. But then again, if you do look in the contents of an older woman's sack thing... I'm so sorry. That's a horrible combination of words, isn't it?
Your mother won't be happy
No.
with this.
No, you're just trying
sack
to
thing.
avoid handbag. Trying to avoid handbag.
Yeah.
Josie, you got in with 2 seconds to go.
Oh, it was hesitation.
And there was indeed. You get a point, and you have 2 seconds still if you want it. Shoehorn, starting now.
My favourite kind of shoehorn.
So let me give you the final score. Zoe Lyons, who's not played the game as much as anybody else, came in a very strong 4th place. 2 points behind the man who's occasionally won, Graham Norton. It's only 2 points behind the girl who's occasionally won, that's Josie Lawrence. And she was 3 points behind the man who was out in front. So he's this week's winner, Paul Merton. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. It only remains me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence, Zoe Lyons and Graham Norton. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such delicacy when the 60 seconds elapsed. We're indebted to our producer, Matt Strong, and we're deeply indebted to the inventor of this amazing game, Ian Messiter. And so from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and this audience, goodbye, thank you, and tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute! Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. And also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic performers who are going to talk for just a minute if they can on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Gyles Brandreth and Tom Allen. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Beverly Tagg, who's going to help me with the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Tom Allen, and this one is Iceland. Tell us something about Iceland in this game, starting now.
Iceland, to me, will always be known as B-Jams. The shop that has always sold frozen food. It was made popular by the slogan, "Mum's Gone to Iceland," a slightly dated reference suggesting that the mother would always go and get the shopping. However, it was made very popular by Kerry...
Oh, Gyles challenge.
Reputation of popular.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
So Gyles, a correct challenge. And there are 38 seconds still available. Will you tell us something about Iceland starting now?
I travelled to Iceland once over Christmas and recall eating reindeer in Reykjavik. It was a delicious meal. Rudolph actually consumed by me before pulling the crackers. It's a country where you can collect lovely words, too, because many of our most interesting and archaic bits of vocabulary come from Iceland. I think of geezer as one of those words. There are others such...
Paul Challenge.
Repetition of words.
Yes.
Yes, indeed,
Yes.
Paul. Well listened. And so you've got in there with 13 seconds to go. The subject is still Iceland starting now.
Well, when I went to Iceland, I was very much surprised to find they had a flavour of the month, and the country was called Tutti Frutti in August. In September, it was known as Chocolate Neapolitan. But at Christmas time, this is when all the Icelandics got together and remember that great triumph against the English at football.
So Paul, speaking as a whistle when again that extra point. And Sheila, it's your turn to begin. The subject is feather duster. Tell us something about that delicate way of dealing with the dust, starting now.
Feather dusters make me think of weekly rep. I seem to play an awful lot of maids, and for some reason, we always had a feather duster. Nobody uses them in real life, apart in art galleries where you do the pictures with them because then you don't scratch them. But on the whole, they're not. Mind you, that comic, Ken Dodd, he has a feather duster as well. They're good for comedy. I remember playing one of those parts in a play with Frankie Howard.
Gyles Challenge.
Oh, it was so interesting.
Playing and playing.
No hesitation, I felt.
It was a hesitation,
Really?
I'm afraid.
That's what
Yes,
I felt.
right, yeah. And I agree with you because I was in rep as well. But somebody always came on with a feather duster at some point. And
What, even in Julius Caesar?
well, if the
Too
producer
brute, eh? When he's going to...
anyway, and 29 seconds, Gyles, are available. You've had a correct challenge. Feather duster starting now.
I was not in rep, but as a young actor, I went to Paris to study with the great French artist Jacques Lecoq, and he would make us play inanimate objects during our mime sessions. I was once a feather duster. Other people were chamois leather, there were buckets, and we had a most amusing time. People would pick me up and dart around the room, using me to brush dust off the top of lintels. It was an extraordinary theatrical experience. You can imagine what a feather duster I am.
So Giles Brandreth, speaking as a whistle when then gained that extra point, and he's taken the lead at the end of that round. Paul, we're with you to begin, and the subject now is my best chat-up line. You're going to reveal something to us, I don't know, but talk on the subject. 60 seconds starting now.
Hello. I know Nicholas Parsons. I haven't really got a chat-up line because I'm a married man, and the idea of me going around chatting up people isn't particularly useful in my current status. I was never very good when I was single at chatting up anyway. I didn't understand the whole process of chatting up lines. I never very good at small talk.
Sheila
You
Challenge.
said chatting up a couple of times.
Did I?
And it's chat up.
Yes.
Right,
that's
well,
repetition.
listen, Sheila, it's
Yes.
correct, yes.
I should have written it down.
So, Sheila, you have a correct challenge. There are 44 seconds still available. My best chat-up line starting now.
I'm way past the age when you use chat-up lines. However, when I go on an aeroplane and I want somebody to help me put my case in the locker, I am apt to say, "You look like a strong lad. Could you help me with my bag?" That goes down quite well because they usually try to pretend that they're very strong. And I say, "Oh,
Paul
well
Challenge.
done."
Whoa,
Was it
whoa.
repetition of strong? You look like a
Yes,
strong lad.
Probably, yeah.
So, Paul, you've got in again with 23 seconds on this subject. My best chat-up line starting now.
I've got a bedsit in Luton.
Oh, Paul.
It's amazing the things that just come out of your head, isn't it?
That's really
How much-
sad. It's really
Paul,
sad.
But it's
how
actually
much,
near Dunstable.
how much, how much success did you have with that one?
None.
Anyway, Sheila, you got him first. My best chat-up line, Sheila, 19 seconds starting now.
On the other hand, I don't bother with that sort of thing now. If I want something like Donald Trump, I go straight in there and grab what I like. Mind you, I'm making this up, of course. I say, also, I've got a lovely bed sit in Bromley. How about coming to look at my...
Right. So Sheila Hancock was then speaking, so Whistle Wen gained that extra point. Gyles, we're with you to begin. We've got a lot of phrases this week. And this one is, not my cup of tea. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
Yes, when I last used my best chat-up line, the response was, you're not my cup of tea, which was a little bit sad for me. My favourite cup of tea is not Roboche, it is not Earl Grey, it's Builder's tea. Traditional, not very...
Paul
Well, there's a bit
Challenge.
of a deviation. He's talking about his favourite cup of tea, but actually the subject's not my cup of tea.
Indeed,
Not
which is
my
not
cup-
Roboche, not Earl Grey.
But you were talking about your favourite cups of tea rather than...
In order to put it in context...
Oh,
this
I see,
being-
we were getting there.
This is, yes, this being
We want a
Radio
bit of a
4,
journey.
the mission to explain.
I see, yes. There was a sort of preamble,
There
sort
you
of
go.
prelude, as it were.
Yeah.
But the principle of your challenge is logical.
Yes, right.
Because he did say my favourite cup of tea, and it is not my cup of tea. So if it's not my cup of tea, it can't be his favourite cup of tea. So I think I've got to give you the benefit of the doubt, Paul.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. 45 seconds available, Paul. Not my cup of tea, starting now.
It's quite near the bus station as bedsits go, and if you're ever in the Luton area, you'll find that you won't be offered any tea, you'll be instead given a magnificent cup of coffee. Not my cup of tea, I am now a coffee drinker. Oh, that's 2 coffees, that's 3.
So you gave the game away, but Gyles was in there quickly, and he's got the subject back. And it's 31 seconds available, Gyles. Not my cup of tea, starting now.
Not my cup of tea is an English phrase introduced in the 1920s and built upon a similar conjunction of words that was created in the 1890s about mine.
Sheila Challenge.
18s?
Yeah.
No, 1920s.
1920, the first time, 1920, and it was 18 something or other. He
You
does
make
go back.
up these dates anyway. Just grabs any old date.
Nicholas, you were there. Is he making these up or not?
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
So Sheila, you've got in there, but it was a wrong challenge.
Yeah.
So, Gyles, you still have the subject and a point, of course, and 20 seconds available. Not my cup of tea, starting now.
I'll tell you what is not my cup of tea, sitting in front of the television set and not being able to hear a word coming from the screen. Over Christmas, I watched something about the Brontes.
Paul Challenge.
Turn it on.
Oh,
Just sitting there looking at it.
Yeah, I think you were trying to convey that they are mumbling a lot.
yes, that's exactly
Yes,
it.
but you
And
didn't
it's
say
not
that.
my cup of tea.
But you didn't say
I
that.
was working up to it.
Working up to it.
Relishing the English language.
He was painting the
Nicholas.
picture before he addressed his central theme.
Yes.
You challenge, and now you're supporting him.
No, I'm just trying to make him look better. No, I definitely challenged.
You did, and on what basis?
Well, that was such a long time ago now.
Well, no, it was deviation, because you should have said because you couldn't understand what they were saying.
Well, how did you know that's what I was going to say if I hadn't been making it very clear already?
Because I quite agree with you.
It is frustrating, isn't it?
It is
It's
frustrating, yes.
I'm now watching with the subtitles.
Oh,
I've worked
you
out how to get
poor
them up.
old
Yeah.
things. You should get hearing aids.
Can I just point out to the listener at home, I wasn't. I'm not part of that same generation, actually. A slightly different demographic.
Well, why the hell are you here?
I'm starting to ask myself the same thing. I'm here to bring diversity. A 33-year-old, bald,
Right.
gay, white man is diversity on just a minute.
That is your chat-up line, clearly.
And it's worked with you, I can tell in your eyes.
I've got the keys to a bed sit in Luton if you're interested.
I think the payoff to that deserves a bonus point, so give it to Paul for that. But I don't know who the hell challenged. It's such a long time ago. Paul, it was you, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yes, right. So you've got 11 seconds. Not my cup of tea, Paul, starting now.
As Yul Brynner approached me, stripped to the waist, offering me a chocolate cupcake in his left hand, I realised he wasn't my cup of tea. I brushed past him to find Julie Andrews. In her dressing room I burst.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's now taken the lead one ahead of Sheila Hancock and Gyles Brandreth in that order. And then comes Tom Allen. And Tom, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is fat cats. Tell us something about that expression, fat cats, starting now.
I don't really like cats unless they are dressed in fancy costumes, particularly those of Donald Trump, Peter Pan, or even Paul Hollywood. Fat cats traditionally means the people at the top of the economic food chain who dominate the amount of money coming into the business. Though the workers may be toiling away down there in the engine room of industry, they are sat upstairs in the boardroom, screaming at each other, "Oh, let's dip into the pension pot and buy another yacht. Let us sack a few more of these employees and go and get our nails done." We live in a terrifying age when the fat cats are getting fatter and the cream is getting creamier for them. But for us, listening to Just a Minute, we must revolt. We must turn against these fat... Nearly got my first minute. Who was it? Who?
Paul, you challenged first.
Yes.
And what was the challenge?
Repetition of must.
And that's
Basically,
right.
we must.
Yes. And you've got in, you've increased your lead. You've got 3 seconds to go.
Nearly my first minute and everything.
I know, you went for 57 seconds.
That's not bad, is it?
Very
good.
I mean, I would say it's pretty excellent. No, wait for the minute.
That was
Even though
terrific.
you're very conceited, I think I should give you a bonus point.
Thank you, Nicholas. I'll take it.
Right. Paul, 3 seconds to go. Fat cats, starting now.
I realised I'd gone too far with my household pet. He now weighs...
So, at the end of that round, Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, has increased his lead. He's just ahead of Sheila Hancock and Gyles Brandreth in second place, and then comes Tom Allen. And Sheila, it's your turn to begin, and the subject now is Queen Victoria. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
Queen Victoria was a fascinating little woman, and she was tiny, apparently, less than 5 foot. She was thought not to be possible to be the queen, but eventually she took over and she was wonderful. She pushed aside Melbourne and all the people that tried to make her do what they wanted, and she was very sexy. There's a wonderful letter that she wrote to Albert after their wedding night, when she talks about him kissing her once and then again, and she felt so loved and cherished. Absolutely gorgeous. She didn't like childbirth, though. She was the first person to use chloroform on one of her 9 births. She endlessly had children because, of course, they didn't have birth control in those days, and they were at it like knife. And when poor old Albert died, she...
Paul challenged.
Repetition of Albert.
Mentioned Albert before, yes.
I know, we still haven't got over it, have we? Prime of his life.
And if you saw the
put up a
programme,
memorial to him.
She actually didn't push Melbourne aside. She was very grateful to Melbourne. She got on very well with him. It was the other one, Gladstone, she hated.
Yeah.
Not hated, and Palmerston. But she was indebted to Melbourne. He helped her considerably at the beginning of her reign. I don't know whether you want these historical facts or not, but...
It's nice to have the eyewitness accounts.
So, Paul, correct challenge. 12 seconds available. Queen Victoria starting now.
She once went to a fancy dress party. One of her courtiers suggested she might go as an elk. She said, "I am not a moose." And that was the way. Oh, yeah, make up your own jokes, why don't you? You'll be using it tomorrow. Absolutely. Jolly Bell would have gone now.
So Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle went and gained that extra point. He's increased his lead at the end of the round, and he also begins the next round. The subject now, Paul, is the big shop. We often talk about a big shop. When you talk about a big shop, or the big shop, starting now.
I suppose in my mind, the big shop was the first big shop I went to, which was a toy shop in London called Gamage's. It's not there anymore, but it was essentially a magnificent place for a young boy to be. All kinds of pastimes were there, board games, train sets, scare electrics and other electrical model-making gear was there. And I just soaked up the entire atmosphere, teddy bears left and right, the wonders of colour, the sound, the whole business of
of creating something which is only there to be a thing of pure joy to an innocent's young eyes. As you opened up your Christmas present in the morning, trying to shake it first of all, it rattled. That meant something exciting. And then...
Sheila challenged.
He's gone off the big shop, hasn't he?
No,
Well,
he's talking
opening
about
his
Gamages, which was a very big
It
shop.
was marvellous. Gamages was marvellous.
It was lovely, yeah.
It was in Holborn, wasn't it? Down the
Yeah,
bottom.
Holborn, that's right, down the
That's
bottom.
right.
Oh, I want to hear more about this.
I thought it was in High Street, Kent.
No. High Street Kent.
What is this? It's like Christmas going around to see your grandparents.
This is a
Where
trip.
was it? Where am I?
This is a trip down memory lane for the hard of hearing.
And High Street Ken is Barbie's rough boyfriend. You must have heard of it. High Street Ken.
And in case I get letters, can I say now that I think you were incorrect about the Scalextrics,
Yes.
because that hadn't been invented when Gamages was there.
When do you think electricity was first used?
No, Scalextrics. It was.
No, it's the electric, really.
No, it came later with my son's generation. They had Scalextrics.
Okay.
Dick, he is your son's generation.
So I lost out on that one.
No,
I don't know
no,
whether
no,
it's
you
fair.
didn't. No,
No, I didn't. Oh, okay.
No, no.
It was all about the big shop.
The big shop.
It's all the big shop. And you've still got the subject. And there are 19 seconds on the big shop, starting now.
Nowadays, people can go to furniture warehouses and follow the signs that lead you around the interior of the building, and you can...
Interior. It's not right. It's not right.
No, it should be the interior. And you've got the big shop.
Oh, have
And
I?
you've got 13 seconds available, starting now.
The big shop is something I think a lot of heterosexual people do on a Saturday morning when they could be doing more exciting things.
Sheila challenged.
It's not just heterosexuals. A lot of my gay friends shop on Saturday mornings as well.
Well, not the ones I've met, and I've met all the other ones. I met them round the back of Gabbage's, or whatever that place was called.
What on earth do I do there now, making a decision? I give them both a point, because there was a logic in what Sheila said, but I don't think it was fair to take it away from you, Tom. And you have 6 seconds starting now.
I always want to buy lots of products to last me through the week. What's it? Hobnobs.
So, at the end of that round, Tom Allen was speaking as a whistle. Wendy's moved forward. He's equal with Gyles in third place, just behind Sheila Hancock, and she's just behind Paul Merton in the lead. And Gyles, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is the equator. We do move about in this show, don't we? From the big shop to the equator, 60 seconds starting now.
The Equator happens to be the name of a club in Paris near the Place de la République, where I used to go with Jacques Lecoq and the other students when I was one of his pupils. Gérard Depardieu there played a game dressed as Neptune, and the entertainment was to pretend to be at the equator and crossing it, and going through a ritual that French sailor boys, and indeed Russian matelot, would enjoy doing when they...
They were enjoying your fantasy world.
I was.
But Paul, you challenged
It
first.
was a hesitation.
Yeah, it was.
The phrase
It was.
French sailor boy seemed to throw him off his balance.
And you got in first, Paul, with 30 seconds to go on the equator, starting now.
Well, as I was learned that...
Giles, you've got it back
Hesitation.
immediately.
Yeah,
yes.
yes, absolutely.
And the 29 seconds now, Giles, the equator, starting now.
Traversing the equator is a most sensational experience, particularly if you are doing it on a ship rather than a boat, though it doesn't really matter what the vehicle is, so long as you get from A to B, or from 0 to 1, one way, or...
Repetition of 0, I think, and a hesitation.
And one, and
one, and
hesitation.
hesitation.
Navigational confusion.
Oh, yes.
Where's Ted Heath when you need him? Oh.
Never thought I'd hear that phrase ever again.
So, you had a correct challenge, didn't you?
Oh, super.
12 seconds on the equator, starting now.
I've always wanted to travel round the equator, the gastric band of the world, dividing north and south, and underneath is where the seasons are different to those of...
So Tom Allen was in Speak as a Whistle When gained that extra point. And Tom, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject is now My Valentine. Tell us something about My Valentine, starting now.
My first experience of My Valentine was quite flawed. As a child, I sent a card to someone which read, "To ? Love Tom." It was thrown back in my face and proved rather frugal because I could use it year after year.
Who's
Year
challenged?
after year.
Yes.
That's what it was, wasn't it?
That's what it was.
Yes. And Paul, you got in first, and you have My Valentine. You have 41 seconds still available, starting now.
I don't remember receiving many Valentine cards. In fact, I don't think I got any until I was about 28. And I didn't know many people. And
Sheila challenged.
Many?
Oh, many, yes.
Yes, too many menus there. So, Sheila, you got in there with 34 seconds to go on My Valentine, starting now.
I think Valentine's Day is a terribly stressful time, particularly when you're a child and you're not going to get any cards and all your friends have. I always send some to my grandchildren with a question mark so that they at least get one from their boring old nana. But it is a rotten time, I think, if you're on your own and everybody else. I was once in a musical, but it was called Sister Act. I said,
But don't draw attention to it, Sheila,
I
because
know.
they may let you get away with it. But Gyles was the first to challenge. Your challenge?
Self-confessed hesitation.
Yes, that's right. And there are 8 seconds still available. My Valentine, starting now.
At Narcissists Anonymous, we don't send Valentines to others, but to ourselves. Because we know that to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong life.
All right. And so, let me get the situation there, because that was the last round.
No.
Oh, this is the last round, right.
You're psychic, Nicholas.
I know.
It's psychic
Absolutely.
Nick.
And so, we're moving into the final round.
Oh, as you predicted.
Right. So let me give you the situation as we move in to the final round. Paul Merton's still in the lead, and he's a few points ahead of Gyles Brandreth in second place, and he's 1 point ahead of Tom Allen and Sheila Hancock in third place. All very close, and it's Sheila's turn to begin, and the subject, a very erudite one, Albert Einstein. Tell us something about Albert Einstein in just a minute, if you can, Sheila, starting now.
Albert Einstein was an absolute genius. Relativity, quantum mechanics, all that sort of stuff is what I should be talking about, but I haven't the faintest idea what that is. However, I know it was to do with physics. What I do know about him was that he was involved with the splitting of the atom, but he set up the Manhattan thing where they made an atom bomb because they were terrified.
Oh, Gyles challenged.
Repetition of atom.
Yeah, there was too many atoms
I've got
there.
to continue that because he did then renege and say it was a terrible mistake.
That went down like a load of old...
No, I don't want people to think that he was the one that invented it, because he said, no, it's wrong.
Right. Well, we won't get any letters on that one, I hope now. Gyles, you've got him with 36 seconds to go. Albert Einstein starting now.
Einstein, born quite unprepared for E to equal MC squared, is a short poem dedicated to the 14th of March, which was the day of his nativity. An anniversary shared with my wife and Michael Caine and a number of other people. Millions, in fact. Not a lot of people realize this.
Paul challenge.
Well, it's not about millions of people now, but not Albert Einstein. We've had Michael Caine, we've had his wife.
Sharing a birthday with the great Einstein. But I did repeat people.
He did repeat it, but you...
And he repeated people.
So what do I do? You didn't actually challenge for that,
No, I
Paul.
didn't, no. I think you give it to Gyles.
No, I don't want to win. It's wrong to win. It's wrong to win.
That's why he never bothers to try.
No, I don't.
I think even if you have the subject, Gyles, you won't win. But,
Oh, good. I'll take the subject then.
But you're very close. So, an incorrect challenge, and there are 17 seconds available. Albert Einstein starting now.
There was a play by Friedrich Dürrenmatt called The Physicists, in which the wonderful Irish actor Cyril Cusack played the part of Einstein. That of Newton was essayed by Michael Horden, and...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of Michael.
Yes, 2 Michaels.
Oh.
Michael Caine.
Oh, yeah.
You look so disconsolate.
No, I have to accept it. I accept it with a very good grace. I'm thrilled.
Josie, you accepted it, but not with good grace.
No, I'm accepting it with good grace now, for Christ's sake.
So, well, listen, Paul. Yes, there was two
Two
Michaels there, and you've got in with 5 seconds to go on Albert Einstein starting now.
One of the first great rap artists, E=MC Hammer. You will remember that...
Oh, Tom, you challenged.
Deviation, there is no such.
That's right.
No,
Well
I
done.
don't believe you.
So deviation from the facts. Oh, it isn't a rapper, is that called?
Well, there is one called MC Hammer, but I'm not quite sure that's what I
yes.
said.
Oh, MC. Yeah,
good joke.
it's MC squared.
It was a joke, as Gyles has helpfully pointed out.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, I think Gyles and Paul were so entertaining on that thing. Give them both a bonus point. Tom, we're going to give it to you because it won't make any difference to the final result. And say that you have half a second to go on Albert Einstein starting now.
What amazing hair.
So I said that was to be the last round. They're all very, very close. Sheila Hancock finished it just in 4th place, and she was only 2 points behind Tom Allen, who was in 3rd place. He was 1 point behind Gyles Brandreth, who was in 2nd place, and he was 3 or 4 points behind Paul Merton. And so we say, Paul, you are the winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, Gyles Brandreth and Tom Allen. I thank Beverly Tagg, who's helped me with the score and blown a whistle so elegantly. We're indebted to our producer, Matt Strong. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. We're indebted to this lovely audience in the radio theatre here. So from the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, thank you. Tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons. And as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. And to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to try and speak for just a minute on the subject that I give them. And they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Jenny Eclair. And seated on my left, Marcus Brigstocke and Al Murray. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me, it's Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the score. She'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we're going to begin the show this week with Marcus Brigstocke. Who better? Marcus the Tube. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
The Tube, also known as the Underground, is a place where Londoners assemble in the morning and play a game called Guess What I Had for Dinner Last Night, where we all breathe on each other and try and estimate whether it was chili, baked potato or shepherd's pie. It's a lovely thing to do and it passes the morning. Now, I've never been lucky enough to see anyone fail to mind the gap, but I live in hope because I think it would be tremendous to watch somebody slip down the side of the train while we all giggle. Not with a fatality, I'm not brutal, but I just think it would be an entertaining way to start the morning.
Jenny challenge.
2 mornings.
2 mornings.
3, in fact. You missed the first 2.
Yeah.
I think they were also
I
shocked.
think you're being kind, in fairness.
So, Jenny, a correct challenge, which means you get a point for that, and you take over the subject of the Tube, and there are 22 seconds available, starting now.
There's always a secret farter on the tube. One whiffs it, creeping down the carriage. Is it Sarin? No, it's the lad in the pinstripe suit. Can't be doing with snoggers either.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, deviation. You said there's a secret farter, but you know who it is. It's the lad in the pinstripe suit.
I'm like the Miss Marple of the Northern Line.
You solved murders, though.
I'm on HRT.
You've got to start somewhere, to be honest.
Now, listen, I'm going to be fair to you, Jenny, because she said a secret farter, and he may have thought he was being secretive about it, but
Yes.
Jenny had spotted it. And she
If
assumed...
she spotted it, he's failed by miles.
He may have failed.
And technically, that's no longer a blow-off, is
No.
it? I mean,
But technically, he was under the impression that he was a secret farter.
right,
Yeah.
yes.
Hey,
yes,
do you
yes,
know this man?
No.
Well, how do you know what his intention was? It's not you, is it?
So, an incorrect challenge.
Sure.
And, Jenny, another point to you. And our 9 seconds still available. The tube starting now.
Oh, no, not all over my best trousers, said that man.
Al, you challenged.
Man. She said man again. It was a man
I
in
don't care.
I
pinstripes.
know. The man in the pinstripe suit. Honestly. I never thought, because I've been in show business so long,
Yeah.
that we'd ever on BBC talk about farts. It's amazing what you can say these days, isn't it?
Yeah. We're certainly pushing back the boundaries.
I know.
And
But we might be pushing them in the wrong direction.
we've said it so
like the
many
man in the
times now.
pinstripe suit.
It's a perfectly acceptable word and very descriptive.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you enjoy the show, Al, because you've not been...
It's going to be a problem for the editor because there are rules about how many farts you're allowed on Radio 4, and a lot of them are taken up on the moral maze.
And Al, you challenge first. It's 4 seconds still available. Tell us something about the tube starting now.
I live near the district line, which is a daily lottery. Will there be a train?
So Al Murray was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and it's also his turn to begin. The subject now, Al, is spam. I'm old enough to have tasted it and eaten it, so will you tell us something about spam starting now?
Spam is an ancient foodstuff from before the dawn of time. Mystery meat, tinned flesh.
Marcus, you've challenged.
Yes, there was a hesitation.
Yes, there was indeed. So, Marcus, a point to you for a correct challenge. 54 seconds available. Tell us something about spam starting now.
My inbox is full of spam, and I don't know how they managed to get the tins down my broadband connection, to be perfectly honest with you. In any case, it's disgusting, and I've got spam filters in place to stop the stuff from getting through. I was very lucky to be cast as King Arthur in the role of King Arthur.
One of the reasons why you got the job.
I remembered his name, and they went, that'll do.
So, Al, you challenge first.
Two or two King Arthurs.
There were two King Arthur's repetition. I have to ask you, in case you come up with something different.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And, Al, there are 35 seconds still available. Tell us something about spam starting now.
I saw Marcus in that production of Spamalot playing the role of two King Arthurs, and he was fantastic.
Marcus challenged.
Yeah, no, it was the wrong challenge. It was repetition of King Arthur, but then I remembered I'd said it. Twice, as it turns out.
And to be fair, it will sound familiar as you did tour in the musical for some time.
So long.
King Arthur does sound familiar, doesn't
Yes.
it?
Right. An incorrect challenge.
Yeah.
Al, you have another point, and you have 30 seconds available still if you need it for spam starting now.
I, too, have received unsolicited emails from people trying to convince me to take on their financial woes, often people from Africa writing to me claiming...
Marcus
People.
challenge.
Repetition of people.
Yeah, there's too many people there. 21 seconds are still available, Marcus. Spam starting now.
Well, it is absolutely yummy if you turn it into a fritter. That's what we were told at school, and it was a massive lie. It didn't matter how much sauce you daubed all over that stuff. As soon as you cut into it, you knew exactly what it was. Revolting, pink, slimy goop winking up at you, knowing that the moment you put it in your mouth, you were probably going to...
So, Marcus was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. Marcus, I have to tell you, as someone who was in his teens during the war, and we had very severe rations, when we found spam, which came in from America, we found it delicious because we were so short of nourishing food.
Yes.
So I must defend it on that grounds.
No, quite right.
And soon Napoleon was defeated.
Paul, you're incorrigible. But I love it. Right. Jenny Eclair, it's your turn. A dog's dinner. Could it be spam, couldn't it? 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
Sometimes I look at those adverts for dogs' dinners on the telly, chunky chunks of lamb or rabbit in a rich gravy, and I think, put a bit of pastry on the top and the old man would love that. Apart from the stink, have you ever opened a tin of the stuff? Pooh, every can of dog's dinner requires at least 4 Joe Malone candles, which are fabulous to get rid of the stench. I tell you what, though, I was once described as a dog's dinner in one of those dreadful female gossip magazines. I dressed up to go to the NTAs, thought I was channeling even my inner...
Oh, poor challenge.
Oh, and unfortunately, hesitation.
Yes, because she corrected herself and it made it sound like a hesitation. Paul, benefit of the doubt on that one. 21 seconds are available. You tell us something about a dog's dinner starting now.
There was one time when I was living with a dog and his name was Oliver, and he was a rather charming creature. A collie, I believe, was the breed, and he would love to eat his dinner rapidly and fast, which I believe is what most dogs do. And one day there was a ring at the doorbell while he was eating his food, and he tried to run up the stairs and eat his food at the same time as eat his food 3 times. He ate his food 3 times.
Marcus, you challenge first.
Yeah, repetition of a dog's dinner.
No, the dog's dinner is a subject on the card.
Eat.
No, food.
Yeah, food.
All right. I'll be kind to you, Marcus. I think you knew what what he
I did at the time.
Yeah.
So there are 3 seconds for you, Marcus, on a dog's dinner starting now.
It's very easy when you make a challenge to make a complete dog's dinner.
So Marcus Brigstocke was then speaking as a whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and he's taken the lead at the end of that round, 1 ahead of Al Murray, 2 ahead of... Paul Merton, it's your turn to begin. The subject is Murphy's Law. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Murphy's Law, I believe, was a film starring Peter O'Toole around about 1969. It came out when I was at school. Murphy's Law also means that if something will go wrong or can actually not be the thing you wanted to happen, then more likely it will. Except on the T-shirt, it's a bit more concise than that. Murphy's Law, he was the policeman that every New York cop respected. Murphy said, Broadway's my patch. Although he didn't have an Irish accent, he was a proud American policeman. He would march up and down saying to people on his patch, listen to me.
Oh, Jenny, we're listening well.
A couple of patches.
Yeah, well,
Yes, so well. And so, Jenny, you get a point for a correct challenge. There are 26 seconds still available. You tell us something about Murphy's Law starting now.
Murphy's Law is named after an ancestor of Jude Law, an ugly fella who spent all his life falling down manholes, off mountains, into rivers, no luck whatsoever, which is why this law has been...
Poor challenge.
Well, it was a slight hesitation.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
I wanted to die.
Because she was going to the realms of the surreal and couldn't go any further. I know. Could see it on your face, Jenny. But Paul, you got in first. A point to you, of course. Murphy's Law, 8 seconds starting now.
If you go to Cork in Ireland, the Irish stout are more likely.
Our challenge, right.
Irish accent from earlier and Irish then.
Irish policeman or something. Yeah, Irish, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, gosh, well, listen. You may be a novice at the game, but you are sharp. Al, 5 seconds to go. Tell us something about Murphy's Law, starting now.
Murphy's Law, also known as Sod's Law, is an iron rule which tells us that what can...
Al Murray was speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point, and he's in the lead at the end of that game. You certainly have the audience with you, Al. Marcus Brigstocke, it's your turn to begin. A favourite book. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
My favourite book is rather a challenging read because it's a colouring book. And so it's taken me a very long time to finish it, and I've run out of crayons, and that's part of the problem. The original title was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but I found that much too challenging, and
Jenny challenged.
2 challengings.
Yes. Jenny will listen. Another point to you and the subject. And 41 seconds available. A favourite book starting now.
My favourite book is the novel Moving by Jenny Eclair, which is available from Amazon. Why don't you look up the title?
Paul
I've said all I need to say.
Paul, your challenge.
Humiliating self-promotion.
Yeah.
And hesitation.
Yes. 32 seconds are available, Paul. A favourite book starting now.
I suppose when I was younger, my favourite books tended to be science fiction novels. One, The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. made a big impression on me when I was around the age of 18 or 19. Nowadays, if I think about my favourite books, certainly the style of autobiography that's been written over the years, film stars, directors in that genre, those are always entertaining for me. I like history, and if it's about something that I know a little bit about.
Marcus, challenge first.
Yeah, it's sort of unravelled
Yes.
hesitation.
And you've got in, Marcus, with 4 seconds to go.
I should have kept going.
Ooh, and you've got the subject of a favourite book starting now.
To Kill a Mockingbird is my favourite book. I've killed 4 of them since
So Marcus Brigstocke speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point. And he's 1 point behind our leader, who's Al Murray. He's equal with Paul Merton. They're one ahead of Jenny Eclair. That's the situation as we go into the next round. And Al Murray, it's your turn to begin. An erudite subject now, Christopher Wren. Tell us something about that gentleman in this game, starting now.
In 1666, when the Great Fire of London ravaged this city, the capital of England, Christopher Wren was taken to one side by His Majesty Charles II and told, "Sort it." So he did. He restored this incredible conurbation with designs drawing on the classical style, and most famously the dome at St Paul's, I guess, though the rest of that part of the South Christ.
Jenny, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
Yes, we interpret that as hesitation. Jenny, a point to you, and 36 seconds are still available. Christopher Wren, starting now.
There was a boy at my school called Christopher Wren, whose brother was named Barry Wren. Anyway, Chris was our favourite. When we wanted to play kiss chase, we'd siphon him off because he was a weak runner, and we would charge him.
Paul challenge.
Sorry, did you say you'd siphon him off?
Yeah.
From the rest of the boys.
I don't think that's what it means to be siphoned off. I'm surprised you can walk, never mind run after that.
So you had a lot of fun with that, so let's get on with the game now. Jenny, incorrect challenge. You have another point. 21 seconds available. Christopher Wren, starting now.
We chase him up a blind alley, stuck against the wall.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, repetition of chase.
You chased
yeah, no,
before,
yes,
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 right.
yes.
So Marcus, you've got in. They're all equal now. And Marcus, another point to you. There are 18 seconds still available. Christopher Wren, starting now.
I don't know a great deal about Christopher Wren, but I do know about...
Paul challenge.
Well, give it somebody the subject who has. I mean, I'm an authority, mastermind. The mastermind subject, Christopher Wren. He knows nothing about. Give it to me. I'll tell you all about him. Christopher Wren. Mastermind. Got 12 points on mastermind. Specialist subject, Christopher Wren. And there he says he knows nothing about it. It's a disgrace.
No, I didn't say...
That's a disgrace.
Very little. I was
I've come here all the way from Great Portland Street to do this show. Disgrace.
So it's an incorrect challenge. Marcus, you have another point. You have 14 seconds. Christopher Wren, starting now.
Christopher Wren is very good if you've got indigestion. That I am certain of. Christopher Wren is a small bird, not to be confused with Christopher Robin, who's friends with Winnie the Pooh. I did warn you I didn't know a great deal.
Paul challenge.
Well, he knows none. This is an insult to Christopher Wren. Perpetrating the mistake. Before, give it to somebody who knows something about it, Nicholas. Come on.
I'm going to give it to you this time, Paul.
Go on, then.
You all right?
Yeah.
And you've got him with 2 seconds to go.
Fantastic. That should just about cover it.
Right. 2 seconds, Paul, on Christopher Wren, starting now.
Christopher Wren, call that a building. I'd rather be seen.
Well, at the end of that round, Paul was speaking of the whistle when gained that extra point, and they're all, in fact, they're all, yes. Paul Merton and Marcus Brigstocke are in equal, one ahead of Jenny Eclair and Al Murray. Right. Jenny, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is rearranging the deck chairs. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Rearranging the deck chairs is a lousy job, especially as the next place you put them is normally by a rubbish bin in a concrete block surrounded by wasps and a dead pigeon. What's the point anyway? They always bark your shins and stub your toes and then you get your fingers trapped in them. I'd burn the wretched things. It was the last thing they kept doing on the Titanic, of course. How brave those souls were. I'd been down in the bar clearing all the wine down my throat. Might as well, we're all going to die.
I'm glad you stopped there. It was really good. What was your challenge?
Repetition. She said down a couple of times, but it was just really it was getting me down. Not sure I can deal with any more of that.
Yeah.
It's really bleak.
I know.
Yes, Al, correct challenge. 29 seconds available. Tell us something about rearranging the deck chairs, starting now.
As Jenny mentioned, they did rearrange the...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition.
Of what?
As Jenny mentioned. You're right, it's nearly funny, but not quite. I respect you for that.
It was a lovely thought, Paul,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a correct
It
challenge.
should have stayed as a thought, really.
All right, Al, incorrect challenge.
Okay.
Rearranging the deck chairs, 27 seconds available, starting now.
Rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic is, of course, something people go on about. But what about all the other times deck chairs have been rearranged on other...
Jenny, challenge.
About and about.
Yes, you did say about 3 times.
Yeah?
Right. She let a 2 go, but the third one she came in. Jenny, 21 seconds still available. Rearranging the deck chairs, starting now.
It's one of those euphemisms, isn't it, for doing something when it's really too late. I'm struggling to think of other alternatives. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, it's like putting foundation on, and I think, well, what is the point, really? This is...
Marcus
A
challenge.
repetition of what's the point?
What's the point? Yes, indeed, Marcus, another point to you. And the subject. And there are 7 seconds available. You tell us something about rearranging the deck chairs, starting now.
Rearranging the deck chairs really means a futile act, like trying to have a sensible discussion with a Daily Express reader. You just know.
Well, at the end of that round, Marcus got a point for speaking as the whistle went. He's one ahead of Al Murray, who's one ahead of Jenny Eclair and Paul Merton. It's all very close. And we go to Paul Merton now. Subject is here, give it to me straight. I don't know why. There's a very dirty laugh in the audience there. Give it to me straight as the subject, Paul. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
Sometimes when people go to see the doctor or other medical practitioners and they're awaiting some verdict or prognosis, and you say, give it to me straight, rather than obfuscate and spit your way around the subject, actually say what it is. Give it to me straight. Humphrey Bogart epitomised a straight-talking gangster. Give it to me straight, Blue Eyes, he said if he sounded anything like that, which unfortunately he didn't. Other people that gave it to him straight were Babe Ruth. Here was somebody who was a fantastic baseball player in America in the 1920s. He would stand at the plate and hit the massive ball back towards the thrower, or pitcher as they call it in those particular part of the world. He was somebody who'd give it to you straight. My mother liked to give it to you straight. She'd say, yeah, you're going to eat that, that's all we've got. But absolutely beautiful soup made from the most extraordinary ingredients. I would taste the taste of dandelion. Oh. Too fast. Too fast.
Right, you went for 51 seconds, Paul. And the irony of this game is you don't get anything for it.
No,
except the applause of the audience because they thought it was brilliant.
That's good enough.
But Jenny, you challenged first, yes?
Yes, I did.
Well, what was it?
Straight and straight. No, it wasn't that. He said that's in the thing.
The first challenge. Oh, that's a new price. Accept first challenge.
Oh,
what was it,
God,
Jenny?
what was it?
What was it?
Zoom!
Taste and taste.
Yeah, there was 30 seconds when you didn't know, though.
So, Jenny, you have another point. Give it to me straight. There are 9 seconds starting now.
Some people can't give it to you straight. This isn't their fault. They've got a kink in it. Now, you can recognise these fellas at the swimming pool. They can't...
So Jenny Eclair was then speaking to us and went. She's moved forward. She's equal in the lead with Marcus Brigstocke. And Marcus, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now is John Lennon. Tell us something about that man in this game starting now.
John Lennon, I think, was one of the Beatles, but I can't be certain. The only way of verifying this is to go to Liverpool, and I wonder whether anybody will remind me if I go up there. I think they probably will. Or I'm not popular when I visit that northwestern city. I've only toured there once, and I'm never going back again. John Lennon was a magnificent songwriter, and he was accompanied, of course, by Paul something.
Paul challenged.
Slight hesitation.
Yes,
sadly.
he was accompanied by right. So, Paul, you have another point. You have the subject. There are 33 seconds. You tell us something about John Lennon starting now.
There used to be a quote attributed to John Lennon that said, "Is Ringo Starr the best drummer in the world?" And he said, "He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles." But
Marcus challenged.
Yeah, repetition of drummer.
Oh, yes.
Repetition of drummer, yes.
Yes, in order to get the laugh, you had to
Yeah.
repeat something. Right. So,
But
Marcus...
I should just say, what it actually turned out was a Jasper Carrot joke, which people remembered as being a John Lennon quote, but it was Jasper Carrot that said it.
Really?
And he was a terrific drummer.
Very good joke.
Very good drummer.
Usually works about the buzzer at the end.
The audience have gone very quiet.
Yeah, they're Googling Jasper Carrot.
So, Marcus, you challenge first.
Yes. Yes.
And you have 25 seconds. You tell us something now about John Lennon, starting now.
John Lennon was most famous for his very small round glasses that are very popular now. He married...
Our challenge.
Very small round glasses that are very popular now.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, they're very,
very
very popular.
Very, yes. Another point to you, Al. And 19 seconds available. John Lennon, starting now.
Imagine no possessions. It's easy if you try. There's no defence in a court of law if you've been caught in John Lewis shouting at the shoppers with no clothes on.
Paul Shand.
I was trying to stop a visual image, but it was too late. But it's a bit deviation. We haven't got to John Lennon yet.
I know we haven't got to John Lennon yet. Paul, you have it. Another point to you. 10 seconds available. John Lennon, starting now.
John Lennon and Paul McCartney met 3 days before I was born on July the 7th, 1950, the year between 6 and 8. Just in case that was repetitious, but I don't think it was.
So Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, and we're going into the final round. No, let me give you the score as we go into the final round. Yes, it's very even, it's very close. Paul Merton and Marcus Brigstocke are equal in the lead, and they're only 1 point ahead of Al Murray and Jenny Eclair in second place. Oh, the atmosphere is building. And Al, well, with you to
Admittedly
begin.
from a low base.
Al, the subject is going to the dentist. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
If I were to be asked by, say, Nicholas Parsons, have I been to the dentist lately, then the answer is no. I can't stand it. I'm probably not unique in that respect. The idea of going to the dentist fills me with dread, horror, dry sweat trickles down my back in fear.
Marcus.
Yeah, deviation. Dry sweat doesn't trickle.
What we call a clever challenge, I have to give it to you, Marcus. And there are 46 seconds still available, Marcus. Going to the dentist, starting now.
In an extraordinary twist of fate, and this is genuinely true, I went to the dentist today for the first time in 10 years, and it was absolutely miserable. They poked about, prodded, drilled, whizzed, and attacked me with various buzzing implements while saying words about my teeth that I did not understand. I can tell you that the small robot dog, K9, is impacted, and I do not understand any part.
Jenny challenge.
You didn't understand twice.
Oh, yes, you understand. Yeah. So, Jenny, you've got in
I
with
did
9...
genuinely go today.
Did you?
First time in 10 years.
Amazing.
That is so bizarre that this
Did you have an
subject has come
anaesthetic
up.
or anything? Or?
No, I didn't.
Oh, why are you dribbling?
He's looking at you, Jenny.
I'm hoping to be siphoned off later.
Jenny had a correct challenge, and she has 19 seconds if she needs it for going to the dentist, starting now.
All dental appointments should be made for 2:30. This is the rule of jokes. I actually went to the dentist only the other week because I bit down hard on an apple. Guess what? Crown fell out. Had to have the tooth refiled. Awful agony, although I have the sweetest dentist, and he's...
So, Jenny Eclair was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. It only remains for me to give you the final score. Al Murray and Paul Merton are equal, only 1 point behind Jenny Eclair and Marcus Brigstocke, who are equal in the lead. So we say they are the joint winners this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game: Paul Merton, Jenny Eclair, Marcus Brigstocke and Al Murray. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle so well. We're indebted to our producer, Matt Strong. We're deeply indebted to Ian Missiter, who created this amazing game. And we're indebted to this lovely audience here. So from the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, thank you. Tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute.